Welcome to episode 102 of Geeks Who Like Sports. As always, I am Ray Carcillo in beautiful Los Angeles, California. Joined my best friend in the entire world over in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Lee Elias. Lee, how are you doing today?
It's beautiful Philadelphia, Pennsylvania today, Ray. It's in the mid-70s, early 70s, and it's nice outside. It's full of sun. It is beautiful here in Philadelphia today. I haven't said that in a long time because we've been in eternal winter of damnation. In which we could not go outside, and there was horrible snow all throughout February. But today, towards the end of March, beautiful weather. I'm good, Ray. How are you over in sunny Los Angeles, California?
Good. It's also going to be in the high 70s here today. It's also sunny. I went out, got some breakfast this morning, and then I'll go for another walk and get some lunch later after this. So that was good. So I am doing well, starting to feel recharged after a harrowing couple of weeks at work. Yeah, we've got a lot to talk about. We got a great show planned for you, folks. We've got very heavy geek episode. We do have some sports stuff. We got some NFL free agency. We got baseball spring training is about to come to an end. Very briefly touch on that. We got some history in basketball. We've got some college wrestling, which should be a fun topic of conversation.
Deep analysis on that today. We know you came here for that one, ladies and gentlemen. So just make sure you wait for it. Don't fast forward. Get through the whole show. It'll be worth it.
Yes, no, it will be. We got a great matchup for you. We got tons of geek stuff, tons of video game stuff, PlayStation, Microsoft. We've got a lot of Marvel news, a lot of fronts there. But of course, we are kicking things off here with the Snyder Cut. Finally,
the Snyder Cut.
This is our spoiler cast of the Snyder Cut. We're going to go full in depth on it. Lee and I have both seen it at this point. It is a thing. It is a movie. It is done. No. I'm gonna be honest.
Be honest.
Similar to Lee, I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I enjoyed it definitely a lot more than the Whedon cut. It still has issues. It still has problems, but I could probably see giving it, I think it's a solid 6 out of 10, maybe even a 6.5. But
that's about what I think I said last week. I think you went from a 3 to a 6, and I went from like a 4 to a 7, which is the same thing.
Yeah.
And then, thinking about it more, I think you're more right. 3 to a 6 is probably fair. Again, last chance here, just one more time, just in case you haven't seen it. This is a spoiler. Spoilers alert. We are going to talk about it. But look, before we even get into analyzing it, a few things I think people have to keep in mind. These are things I spoke to Ray about before he watched it, which was, look, it's not an in-theater movie. It's a 4-hour cinematic event.
Yeah.
And you have to approach it like that. And typically, whenever you have 4-hour events, you're going to have a lot of scenes that would typically be cut in a film, which can make you think of, wow, this is taking forever sometimes. There were not many scenes like that in this, but there's scenes that you could see like, okay, they probably could have done without that, but they didn't need to. Right. And I was really respectful of that when it came to Snyder and his reasoning for being able to do this, that I was okay with that. There were really not many scenes. What I was most impressed with, Ray, I think I said this last week, but I'm going to say it again, is that the scenes that we did already know, that we had already saw, had a completely different feel to them. I think almost every single one of them ended differently than it did in the Whedon cut. And it was just an overall better experience. It shows a few things. It shows how much they rushed the Whedon cut. Yeah. It shows that people at Warner Brothers were just like, look, man, get this thing done, whatever it costs. And that, he had to make some script decisions to make things make sense. And now that I've seen the Snyder cut, I can see why he made some of the choices, I'm talking about Whedon now, that he made to finish that film. Right. And it doesn't make the film any less bad from 2017, but now I know why. I'm like, oh, wow, you guys really did rush this. This film was complete. Everybody had a backstory. The motives were clearly established, and it left open a universe that we're going to talk about in a minute that I don't want to be made, but it left it open. We are going to talk about that. But
we are
Ray, why don't you talk about your favorite parts, the things that were, that you weren't expecting, that you were expecting, that you liked, and then we can get into dislike.
I mean, I think the big thing is the redemption of Steppenwolf as a villain. I think they gave his motivations properly here. I think obviously the inclusion of Darkseid, the inclusion of Desaad, you even get a couple of cameos from Granny Goodness. I mean, there's again, driving right to the end when Darkseid says we're doing things the old ways. Like, obviously, it's an invasion force. It feels more like how it should be. It's with the comics and the cartoons, and it feels like, this feels like DC. This feels like the DC universe. This feels like how it should have, and I think it really stems from the redemption of the villains and going far more in depth with that. Steppenwolf was a total badass in every sense of the word, and every
villain.
sense. Yeah, he was a great great villain. I think the big problem. I think the big problem with it is that this was really two movies. This was two movies crammed into one, and you could even tell with the way the chapters were. Chapter 3 was the end of movie 1. That's an hour and 50 minutes in, and like Lee said, everybody gets a backstory, and it's much needed. And I think this is where Marvel was actually kind of smart, and where they kind of succeeded was the reason why they didn't need to do backstories in the Avengers is because they did them all in separate movies. And I think that giving Cyborg 40 minutes and Flash a half hour and Aquaman a half hour was really the way to go, and something that they needed. They needed a Justice League Part 1 and a Justice League Part 2, because in the second half, after everybody's established and the thing finally starts to get going, it really does pick up. And like you mentioned, Lee, now that a lot of these scenes have context to them, it elevates everything that we had already seen to a degree that makes this an actual tolerable movie. But I think, again, the big thing is the big problem is that it was 4 hours long, and that it really does feel like it should have just been, Warner Brothers should have just made Justice League Part 1 and Justice League Part 2. And I think they were worried that there wasn't enough in Justice League Part 1 to bring people back to Part 2, and that's why they were worried about that. And again, they didn't want to seem like they were too much like they were trying to distance themselves from Marvel, but again, we talked about this in 2017. The reason why, Marvel figured out the formula. They figured out it's not the anti-life equation. It's the successful movie franchise equation. And just trying to change things up doesn't work. But also, I love that Superman, how the mother boxes were activated was smart. Again, the anti-life equation, the fact that they were scared, that they were somehow sentient of Superman, and that his death cry, both being a death cry and it being his cry, woke up the mother boxes. I think it tied a lot to. It made a lot more sense. Right. It worked. It just worked. So, yeah, I think it was, I still have problems with the movie, and we'll get into those in a little bit, but it just overall was much, much better.
Right. Yeah, look, even the opening of the film, like you said, with going back to Batman versus Superman, where Superman is dying and his screams are heard around the world, literally. Right. I thought that was a brilliant opening because it shows how powerful Superman is. One of the problems we've always had in Superman films is they never accurately depict how powerful he is. Yes, he can fly. Yes, he's super strong. Yes, he has the vision and the heat vision and the cool breath, but the movies never, he is invincible, for lack of a better word. And that's the idea, is that only kryptonite can kill him. Right? And the idea is that every other superpower being in the universe is afraid of Kryptonians. It also enhances why Krypton going to hell is such a big deal. It's like the base and the anchor of the universe, and they got too big for themselves. So there's a much deeper feeling there with, okay, Superman's dead. The mother boxes feel safe enough to call out.
Yeah.
Right? And I thought, wow, what a great opening. You really talked about right away why Superman's so important. The other thing that they nailed in this film, and just going back to something that you said, I don't agree that it should have been in 2 parts, because I don't think Part 1 would have survived enough to get to a Part 2. I think what you said about Marvel is correct, is they should not have rushed to Justice League, and they should have given each one of these characters an origin of some sort. Now, I can see the people at Warner Brothers going, there's no way that Cyborg gets his own origin story. Nobody will watch it. That's why you mesh him in with someone else.
Right.
Flash could never work. Yes, it could. There was a point
sure.
they said Wonder Woman could never work. It did. So
Flash,
they could have done it.
Flash has a rogues gallery
Totally.
on par with Batman. You could easily have done a Flash solo.
Yeah, so my point is they could have taken their time to do this. They just didn't. Right. And when you say Part 1 was, like you said, 40-minute backstories all put together, which they did well. Like Flash's backstory was much better. It really shows his power set. That's another thing I want to talk about at the end of the film. But yeah, this film really does a great job of explaining how powerful Superman is, and what it nailed, this is what I'm going to say, what it really nailed, which the other ones didn't, and I wouldn't even say they didn't nail it, they really almost screwed this up, was Batman's place in the Justice League. This film accurately makes Batman weaker than the other superheroes because he is, in fact, extremely weak compared to these gods, but his role is to bring them together. Yeah. That is correct. It's the first time they've got him. Yeah. the first time they got Ben Affleck's Batman correct. And I thought Affleck actually did a good job in this film of being not scary, right? And like again, we've talked about this on the show so many times about how Marvel is humans trying to become gods and DC is gods trying to become human. This one finally nailed that. These are gods: Superman, Wonder Woman, Cyborg, Aquaman, Flash, gods, right? Yeah. Batman's not, and they totally nailed that. Another thing that I loved, Ray, if I may, is the Superman resurrection in this film was way better. Just way better how it was done. He doesn't speak at all, which was great. All right, like the lines of him going, "Do you bleed?" Yeah. No, but my mustache is gone. That was so bad. It made no sense. The lines made no sense. I love that he just plows through the Justice League to show everybody how powerful he is, and that Lois is the key, which is kind of important to bringing him back to life. Yeah. And then obviously the black suit. I still don't know why they didn't do that at all in the original cut. I don't see any reason why they had to cut that outside the fact that like he just kind of appears later in the movie after he's resurrected. Mm-hmm. But for those of you who don't know, and maybe some of you don't, the whole idea behind the black suit, it's a recharge suit, right? The black suit absorbs sunlight. Sunlight is what powers Superman. That's why he flies to space and becomes Jesus for a moment in this film to absorb the sunlight. But that is absolutely canon with the comic books. That's what he wears after he dies in the comic books because it recharges him faster. And
although I will say I'm glad they did stop. Zack Snyder wanted to digitally add a mullet supposedly to Superman. I'm glad that Warner Brothers put the kibosh on that. Right. That would have been comic accurate, but we don't need that. That's too much, especially after the mustache debacle. No.
Yeah, well, to be fair, they didn't use any of the mustache footage from that was all Whedon. So as I read about, so there's no upper lip problems anymore. But look, here's the deal: is Superman even coming back? And we said this that how corny the line was in the final fight when he just appears. He goes, "I believe in truth and justice," and I was like, "Oh my goodness, that's corny. It's not funny." In this one, Steppenwolf brings down his axe to him, going, "Not impressed," and I loved it. I loved it. And they didn't make a joke out of him at the end, and it was way more serious. It was way more comic booky. And again, it felt like its own thing. Ray, if I may,
yes,
I thought the best part of this film was actually Flashpoint at the end when they show Flash reversing time. I thought that was a pretty brilliant scene. Yeah. And I liked it because again, they didn't make Aquaman and Flash a joke in this film. Yeah, they were a comic relief in the other one. I kind of understand why they did that. I mean,
they still have a couple of one-liners here or there,
but it's much better. Again, they're all on equal footing at the end of this movie, right? Yeah. And they weren't in the Whedon cut. Like Flash, and it was noticeably weaker than the other ones in that film. They do show that Barry Allen has some drive, that he is willing to do what it takes. They obviously add a bit more to his backstory, that he's nervous about what he's doing and that he doesn't really know his place. And that was well done. Wonder Woman was great. Wonder Woman had the least amount of changes by far.
Right, and she needed the least amount,
Right, yeah, she got plenty. But overall, man, I enjoyed the sequence. I enjoyed how the story was told. It felt like its own thing. It was very much a comic book, Zack Snyder, 300 level type film. And I'm glad they did this. And I'm not. We'll talk again in a minute about where they go from here. But I also want to get your thoughts on the epilogue, Ray. I mean, you can comment on everything else I said, too. But
yeah, I mean, just a couple other quick things. Obviously, Cyborg got a huge redemption here. Massive. My only problem with Cyborg was I talked about this, the football playing scene. Again, this was one instance with a slow motion, which I didn't have. Sometimes I didn't have a problem with it, but then sometimes it was like, okay, you actually you can see how badly they're acting as football players when you slow it down at this speed. Because, again, anybody who's watched football is like, he's faking. That's really bad. You could have easily trimmed that scene and still gotten the impact of his dad not being in the stands. But other than that, obviously, I think Cyborg was very much redeemed. Ezra Miller, I still think is a terrible Flash. Not the way he was written. Just in this case, it is on the actor. I think the way Ezra Miller portrayed Barry, I think was I don't think he does the character justice. Especially after seeing Grant Gustin for as long as we've had on the TV show. It's obvious that Ezra is an inferior actor when it comes to this character.
It's just a little bit too silly for me.
Well, even the way he runs with his arms flailing, and I'm just like, oh my god, dude, come on.
Yeah, we talked about this. This is someone who like probably put too much time into the character and overthinking the character. Mm-hmm. You know, Ray and I were talking off the air, like, look, man, Flash just sprints. He doesn't do anything crazy.
Yeah.
You know, I saw that funny meme going around that about all the other Flashes know how to run, but Ezra Miller didn't, and that's why he created that crazy dance. And like, I don't know what the deal was there, if there was some comic inspiration, but he just seems to be trying a little bit too hard on this character.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I mean, again, this was filmed 4 or 5 years ago now, so it might be a little bit different today. To be fair to him, I mean, it's the first time he appeared as that character.
I suppose.
But, you know, but yeah, it's interesting to see how he interprets Flash.
As the kids like to say, he's sweaty, which means he's a tryhard. So
there you go.
Yeah. So for that. But then going into the epilogue. I hate Jared Leto's Joker. I still do. This did not do anything to change my mind on that. Big part of the epilogue is that Bruce Wayne has another nightmare and that he sees further into the future, again, where we kind of get the idea, the hint, like Lee mentioned, that Lois Lane is the key and that he still has a feeling that Lois is something darker. They basically hint at in the epilogue that Darkseid comes to Earth, as is teased at the end of the movie. He kills Lois Lane. And actually similar to the cartoon, this actually happens in the cartoon, Superman the Animated Series, that when there's an episode where Lois dies and then Superman basically becomes a dictator and turns evil in the cartoon, it's the same idea, is that when Lois dies, basically the anti-life equation infects Superman, which allows him to be bent to Darkseid's will, and then Darkseid basically uses Superman to conquer the Earth once he has the full anti-life equation. And then, of course, the nightmare scenario is Batman and his ragtag group, of which is Flash, Mara, Deathstroke, and the Joker. I mentioned Flash and the Joker of all people, about trying to undo the damage done and somehow go back and save Lois Lane so that this never transpires. So Batman has another premonition. The dialogue between Joker and Batman was good. I do not think Jared Leto's Joker is very good, and every second that he was on the screen, I was grinding my teeth. I think that I hope he never touches the character again. I hope we never see him in Suicide Squad. We'll get to that in a bit later in the show. Like, I don't want Jared Leto ever near this character ever again. Great actor, terrible Joker.
He probably won't be. Yeah. So just to give some context on the epilogues, because there was multiple epilogues to this film.
Yes.
I've
read. Some were better than others. Yeah,
I've been multiple places. I've read that it was an extended epilogue because Snyder was trying to gift the fans with this is what it would have looked like if I was able to continue in some of these storylines. Mm-hmm. It has come out what the Nightmare storyline would be and where the Justice League movies were going. Like we'll either talk about that in a minute or we'll allude to it. But yeah, no, I thought the actual epilogue with Cyborg rebuilding the cassette to hear his father's last words.
That was great.
That was well done. That's what it should have been. You'll remember in the original film, his father survives the entire ordeal. Here he sacrifices himself so that they can find the mother box, which is a much better way of handling that character.
Yes.
And then the nightmare scene, and then there was the final scene, which was Ben Affleck, clearly not in Batman shape as this was filmed recently.
Yeah.
Meeting Martian Manhunter for the first time. So the Manhunter scenes in this didn't make any sense to me in the sense of they were very out of place and forced. They weren't bad. They were just they didn't make sense, and it was this was just Snyder going, okay, I want to put Martian Manhunter. The rumor is, and it's not really a rumor, is that was supposed to be Green Lantern, but the studio had told him that you do not touch Green Lantern. We'll get into that in a bit too.
Right.
But they were out of place, and then Ray and I had the exact same frustration with this. Ray, I'll let you know. I'll let you acknowledge it. But there was something alarming about Martian Manhunter that bothered both of us.
Well, it's just that where were you during the big battle?
Yeah.
Where that was the time for you to make yourself known. That was the time to introduce yourself to the Justice League. I mean, and again, I also want to say with the epilogue, there's a good scene there where Batman seems to be buying a property that they're going to turn into the Hall of Justice with Wonder Woman. They're like a big table right there in the middle with 6 chairs.
Room for more.
And when Wonder Woman's like, yeah, room for more. And Batman's like, room for more. Which I get that you're hinting at. And again, also to the Cyborg scene, you see flashes of Aquaman going back to the land, looking for his dad, things like that. There's some good parts to the epilogue. But like Lee mentioned, the whole Martian Manhunter thing, him being the general that we've seen in other films that's talked to Lois.
Man of Steel.
Right, yeah, exactly. That's cool. That's fine.
Yeah,
I'm
makes
okay.
sense.
Right?
He's observing, yeah.
Yes, but him suddenly then reaching out to Lois Lane, like, it's clear if that for that to make sense, it's clear he has to know more than he's letting on. And if he knows more than he's letting on, why didn't he appear in the final battle when they most needed him?
Right.
Why does he reveal himself weeks after to Batman after this nightmare?
The reason why is because they didn't film it. Because it wasn't part of the original storyline. And that's why it feels so out of place. The Manhunter scenes were filmed afterwards or edited afterwards. And that's why. I mean, I'll be honest with you. It wasn't ever in the script for him to be in that fight. But again, I think it's just more of him. Hey, this is what he looks like. This is how I would have done it. Right. This is where the story was going. Which, if I may transition, Ray, that kind of brings us to the other side of this entire thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, let us know what you thought of the Snyder Cut. You can comment below or just reach out to us. But the fans of the Snyder Cut are now doing something that I wish they wouldn't do. And some of you are going to be upset with Ray and I about this.
Yeah.
But the calls to restore the Snyderverse need to stop. Yeah. It is not a good idea.
No.
It is not going to happen.
No.
And I do not think a lot of you realize what you're asking for. All right? Number one, follow me here. The story has already been released of what it would have been.
Yeah.
So I don't really have a desire. Now, this is personally, I don't want to see that story. That doesn't mean you listeners don't. Okay, so I don't want you to think I'm basing this off of whether or not I like the story.
Yeah, Lee and I both agree the story sounds like garbage.
Yeah, it's a bit much. Okay, and what I was gonna say, the long and the short of the story is that the nightmare becomes a reality. Lois dies. Superman has a son that turns into Batman, and Batman has to go back in time and kind of sacrifice himself to save them all. And
right, and then
there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more to it than that. You can look it up, but it's out there already. So
and it's also you want to talk about trying to get away from Marvel. It's actually very Marvel-esque because it's very much Avengers, where you go back in time after 5 years.
It is. Thank you. That's one point. Number two is this: Warner Brothers and DC, with all the mistakes that they've made, actually did something right with the Snyder Cut here. I can actually say that. They actually did something right. I'm not saying that they hit a grand slam here. Right. They made a $30 million commercial for HBO Max, and it was pretty good.
Yep.
All right? That's what we get. You say thank you. Yeah. Thank you for listening to us, DC and Warner Brothers and HBO. We really appreciate it. Please stay on this direction. Yes, I'm sounding condescending right now. If they make the rest of those Snyder movies and they don't do well in terms of reception with the fans, they'll never listen to us again.
Yeah.
Ever. They're barely listening now.
You got one mulligan. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. We're done with it. That's it.
And this is the other thing. We've talked about this before. There's something that everyone's forgetting. And again, this is where you're going to be torn. This is where the Restore the Snyder universe fans are going to come at me. You're forgetting WB and DC are not going in on Zack Snyder. They're going in on someone else. Dwayne Johnson. Yeah. He's coming in to play Black Adam. I really think people are underestimating what his plan is for that character. He's not coming in to do a one-shot movie. He's coming in to take over DC.
Yeah.
He really is, guys. No one seems to be commenting on this but me and Ray.
Yeah.
He's coming in to be bigger than Superman. And you're saying there's no way he's going to be bigger than Superman. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but if you look at this dude's career, he's doing things that everyone told him he would never do.
Yeah.
He's the biggest movie star in the world. I really like him. Number one, I really like a lot of the movies that he makes. I love Young Rock. I love the things he does. That's what they're banking on. And I put money on the fact that they told Zack Snyder, do not use Green Lantern because it's going to be involved with that project.
Yeah.
Because I think they have the future already set.
Well, and that's the thing. They're establishing the Justice Society of America in Black Adam. Another story that we'll just briefly touch upon here. Pierce Brosnan now has been signed to play Dr. Fate.
Which is awesome.
That is huge.
Yeah.
That is huge. It's a big deal. You're getting huge, massive movie stars now to sign on to the Rock's project. And that's really what it is. It's the Rock's project. And also, here's the thing. The only other thing that we should get now from this universe is Flashpoint. That's it. It should just the reset button. Hit the reset button. Let it be its own thing. Let it drift off into oblivion. and just let it be. Because if we continue with this, the DC cinematic universe is so fragmented and such a mess as is now, with Joker, with the Robert Pattinson Batman.
Yeah.
It's only going to make things worse if you continue down this road.
If I may.
Yeah.
They've barely gotten any of these Snyder films correct.
Yeah.
They had to make a 4-hour film version of it to make it make sense. Do you really think the ship has been righted? Is that where we're at? That they fixed it with this film? I don't feel like they fixed it. No. I feel like they redeemed it a bit.
Yes.
I don't think they fixed it. Like I'll be honest with you, with the Snyder Cut, Ray, again, some people might disagree. It wasn't good enough to get a sequel in my eyes.
No.
It was good, but it wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
Again, this wasn't a grand slam, friends. It might have been a home run at most. All right, but it wasn't a grand slam. All right, and again, I don't want you to. I really did enjoy the movie.
I think it's a 6. You think it's a 7.
Yeah.
That's like, okay.
Yeah.
They're okay.
This is not like Endgame. This is not like Infinity War. All right,
Yeah.
not even close, actually.
Yeah. Again, it took again DC again. It all goes back to the fact that DC rushed all of this. Yeah. Right? They reacted as usual. DC reacted instead of being proactive at something.
Right.
And they overreacted in a way that this became a whole huge mess for them that they took 4 years to correct. At this point, just let the sleeping dogs lie and move on.
Here's another one too. Like look, people believe what they want to believe sometimes. I'm seeing all these tweets like 1 million people are signed, bring back the Snyderverse. Okay, that's fine. That's a lot, but they retweeted it. Big deal. The other one too is like, well, it did better than Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Of course it did. It's a 4-hour Superman Batman movie, not the first episode of a new show. The fact that you can put them together is a compliment to Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that your inferiority complex is so pronounced at this point, DC fans, that you're desperately trying to cling on to these unequivocal victories. That it's pitiful. It looks bad on you. It looks bad on us as somebody who is a very diehard DC fan, and which is why usually extra critical of them.
I want to reiterate what you just said. You are a huge DC fan, so he's not against DC. He's just, this movement doesn't make sense to me, and it does seem desperate, Ray. Like you said, it's just they can do better.
Yeah,
we should be striving for better films and better character development, not settling for this. All right.
Exactly.
Not to mention, I don't really think I know Zack Snyder's came out and said like this is great. I don't really think he wants to make more superhero films.
No.
It's not exactly been a labor of love for him right now. I mean, he's going to always have to associate this with the death of his daughter.
Yeah.
It's like, guys, it's not a good mix. It's not a good mix. I would not bet on it. If you put in front of me Dwayne Johnson and the current state of the DCU with the Snyder stuff, I'm taking Dwayne Johnson. That's my opinion. All right?
Think about it.
That's my opinion.
And again, you have The Rock and James Bond now teaming up in his movie. Like, that's I'm sorry. That's the way we're going. Deal with it.
And if it sucks, we'll call that out too, just to be fair.
I was more than happy to be critical of WandaVision. We all know that. I was super critical of that. When it's bad, we're going to call it bad. We call a spade a spade. The thing is that in the past decade, Marvel has a lot less stinkers than DC. It's just that's the way it is.
My final note on this, Ray, and you feel free to add your own, is that the Snyder Cut was a good film. It was a redemption film.
Yeah.
It did what it needed to do, and I am okay with it being done now.
Yes.
Okay? That's where I'm at with it, all right? If those of you really want more Snyder films, I would really think twice. I think you need to hold DC and Warner Brothers to a higher standard.
Yes.
Okay? I think you deserve a higher standard. I think we all do.
Yep.
All right? I think getting away from Superman and Batman for a while might be a good idea.
Yeah.
All right. Even though
we got a new Batman movie coming anyway. So.
I think staying away from that for a little bit might be a better idea. I'd like to see more of their reaction to Black Adam.
Yeah.
Like that's when you can bring them back and whatever you want. We don't need any more origin stories.
Yeah.
So what I hope they do, Ray, is I hope in Black Adam they allude to, Justice League or some of those heroes.
The Age of Heroes. I mean, I'm curious to see where it's gonna be. Yeah, what the time period is. How much of a time period is it gonna encompass that movie? We got a lot still to learn about that. We mentioned Dr. Fate, Pierce Brosnan there. Another casting change for DC. This is actually pretty big. Wallis Day, who played Nyssa Vex on the Krypton. I watched only the first season. It was pretty good. I never watched season 2. But she has been cast as the new Kane in the Batwoman series. Replacing
Ruby Rose.
Thank you very much, Ruby Rose. Couldn't think of her name there. But yes, obviously they're gonna continue with the woman who's currently Batwoman, but that Wallis Day will now make appearances as Kane. They explain why she looks different, saying that the accident that at the end of season 1, obviously she had the reconstructive surgery, all that other fun stuff. So very comic book and TV ways, kind of easily explaining the recasting there. But of course, Kane is so important to the Batwoman character and that universe. They couldn't just keep going with that second season without her coming back at some point. So she was a mid-season surprise, which was fun. I'm all for it. Wallis Day's a great actress, and she was terrific on Krypton. And again, it just makes perfect sense for her to come back. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm glad that show is going to be able to continue going.
Yeah. And then the other big news here, and again, talking about movies that I think are going to get it right, I'm really excited for this now, because I hated the other Suicide Squad. And also the people out there asking for the Ayer cut, shut up. Just shut up. We don't need any more of these director's cuts, please.
Well, but I would watch a director's cut of Endgame. That's been thrown out there too, but that's because it would probably be very good.
Yeah,
but we don't need it. Don't need it.
Don't need it. I'm good. Right. I'm good in the director's cuts. Thank you very much. But a director I have immense amount of faith and confidence in is James Gunn.
Me too.
And the Suicide Squad trailer, it's dropping. The movie's dropping the first week of August now. It looked phenomenal. I am not going to lie. The comedy there, Idris Elba and Margot Robbie and John Cena as Peacemaker.
You can't say his name like that.
What, you want me to say John Cena? Yeah, you know, something like that.
Now
we
get it right. Now
he was. I mean, I'm not gonna. I mean, the whole thing about the whole beach full of dicks was hysterical. Like, it's just a hysterical scene. Like, I am all for this now. Plus, the trailer is showing one of the greatest villains in DC history.
One that
originally brought one of the Justice League together back in the Silver Age. Starro the Conqueror is going to be in this. Are you kidding me? And I know it looks. I mean, I love it. Whoever the handler is for Amanda Waller back there, it's like, we got a kaiju, and it's Starro, and it's like, holy cow.
Well, the best part of that scene is Idris Elba going, because he was in a movie about kaiju already with Pacific Rim.
Yes, exactly.
So I thought that was really good. That was a great cut of like, I've done this before.
Yeah.
Right, but Starro, I saw that too. Right? I was like, wow, really? They went there. And obviously Harley Quinn looks great again.
Yes.
Margot Robbie really does nail that character.
Yes.
And there's someone who's had 2 shots at this, and she's so good they keep surrounding her with more movies.
Yeah.
But you're also seeing now what happens when you get potential directors that really do understand, and they're not asked to rush a movie to completion that's supposed to be the biggest movie of all time. Yeah. What happens when they can do stuff on their own? Yeah. Keeping in mind that James Gunn directing this was a result of Marvel's firing and then him being rehired later on to come back. That kind of worked out.
He got the best of both worlds. He got
right.
he got fired and then got 2 movies out of it because they just really brought him back.
And he never should have been fired to begin with. But
no,
it looks really good. John Cena is really nailing the character. I call him a Costner. He's a Kevin Costner, right? Mm-hmm. He's playing the same funny character in every movie.
Yeah.
He's not The Rock, right? He doesn't have a range like The Rock, but he nails that kind of big muscle, like over the top dummy. And he's just so good at it, and he's
got
so
good timing. Yeah, it's perfect. And we already know they did announce this. They're going to do a Peacemaker prequel series on HBO Max.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting.
Starring him, so that should be a lot of fun. A one season thing, and I think that's the way to do it. I think that's smart. I'll actually say this. If DC had HBO Max like 5 or 6 years ago, that would have been a great way to introduce like Cyborg and like a couple other characters.
Well, and they did. That's another reason why you shouldn't do the Snyder cut, Snyder universe.
Right.
Is because, and we're going to talk about this in a minute too, things are changing drastically behind the scenes right now, as we predicted many times well before the pandemic, Ray.
Yes.
But this movie looks great. John Cena apparently did such a good job in it. In the early cuts, they gave him a TV show.
Yeah.
And John Cena is a smart guy. He is a humble guy.
Yeah.
He was at the top of the wrestling world for a while, even with a lot of hatred. He was up there for a long time.
Yeah.
And I sometimes I wonder if he gets the credit he deserves. But I mean, I'm a John Cena fan in terms of a human being.
Yes.
And I like seeing this. But yeah, that cast looks great. I love the line when he's in the theater. And he goes, we're probably all going to die. And Polka Dot Man goes, we can only hope. And he goes like, aha.
Yeah, and Idris Elba's just
so
like,
good.
Idris Elba doesn't want to die, but he's around people who clearly don't care, either way. Oh, and of course, Sylvester Stallone is King Shark.
King Shark looks hilarious. Yum, yum. Just
hand.
Brilliant.
Yes, that's your hand.
This looks like a lot of fun. That's the way I
Yes.
would describe it. I'm trying to remember the last time I said a movie looked like a lot of fun. You know what? It was Bill and Ted.
Movie.
It was Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. And you know what? It was a lot of fun and it worked. That was really well received, which I was shocked about. So shows that kind of some of these things can work. But James Gunn is a pro. He's got pro actors. Margot Robbie has played Harley Quinn, I think, in 3 films now.
This is
right?
her third film, if you count the Birds of Prey.
Well, I think it's she was in Batman v Superman for a little bit too, right?
Also, she's been the cinematic Harley Quinn now for
So
she's kind of locked in. So
and I don't think this is going to get a sequel, but we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to this one. Great stuff from James Gunn. Really.
Yeah, so James Gunn acting as the bridge between DC and Marvel that allows us now to say, good morning, America. So moving on now. America. Yeah, that moves us into our Marvel section. And again, this is a record 2 weeks in a row where we haven't led off with the Marvel show of the week.
Yes, we need to change it up anyway.
Yeah, no, it's true. But Falcon and Winter Soldier episode 2 dropped. It was a phenomenal episode. They did a really great job of this was John Walker's episode, right? This introduces us to him as Captain America, who he is, what his motivations are, and you can already start to see by the end of the episode the chinks in the armor, right? The cracks, the weaknesses of John Walker compared to Steve Rogers. And it's a big deal. It's basically because it's very easily summed up by Sam because Walker, the whole thing is he wants to work with Sam and Bucky. He's got Battlestar there with him, Lamar Hoskins, which of course is comic canon, right? Like when John Walker first takes over, and this is well before his U.S. agent days. He becomes Captain America. He has his best buddy Lamar Hoskins. Lamar becomes Battlestar, aka his version of Bucky. Thankfully, they are not doing the left winger and the right winger. That's a whole nother story. Google those. Trust me, we did a whole thing on streamlounge.io last night talking about them. It's, enough. But yeah, no, so it's this interesting dynamic where it's like the old Bucky and Cap versus the new Bucky and Cap. I should say Sam isn't Cap yet, but we're pretty sure Sam's going to become Cap at some point. And basically, they have this confrontation. The summation of the episode is when Sam says, we're kind of like free agents. We can operate outside of the boundaries and parameters that you're stuck in. And it's kind of then when John Walker kind of realizes, he is kind of stuck within certain government limitations. And he kind of just walks away saying, well, then stay out of my way. And that's a big deal because you see them try to come together. It doesn't happen. Then a huge rift. And I think that whatever happens with John Walker, I think it's going to be an indirect result of Sam and Bucky kind of giving him the cold shoulder here.
Yeah, there's lots of moving parts in these episodes. Where it stands right now, you have John Walker, Captain America, and his teammate. You have Sam and Bucky on their side. You have the Flag Smashers on one side. You have the Power Broker on another side, and then you have Zemo.
We got a lot more Power Broker. Well, a hint at a Power Broker this episode.
Right. Well, it exists, and then Zemo. So there's actually 5 kind of moving parts right now to this entire show, and that's if you exclude just the U.S. military and everything that comes with that. Mm-hmm. But it was a really great episode. We'll talk again about what there was the biggest unveiling part of this episode actually had nothing to do with these people, but what I said yesterday, and I think it's true, is that I'm realizing episode 1 was just a prelogue, right? It really just was kind of establishing where everybody's at and what they're doing. Right. This really felt like the first chapter to me. Here's where we're going. I love that it starts out, and again, people are ripping on the new Captain America, but the show's doing a great job of showing this guy's a war hero. He's not a bad human being. They kind of show in the beginning he has people who care about him. Like, he's not a villain, right? He's not your villain. Or at least they're making him appear like that. I should say that.
I mean, there's one great moment with Bucky where Bucky's like, oh, yeah, you ever jump on a grenade? And John Walker's, actually 4 times. I have this reinforced helmet thing, and it was a really great scene to show, he's a good dude. Like,
he's not a bad guy. And, like, what I love about characters like that's kind of like Dark Jedi, right? It's like they're not exactly heroes, but they're not villains, and they operate in their own space. And He is not operating in his own space right now in the sense of he's under government control. There was an important scene about that where, Sam and Bucky say, like, look, we don't operate under any supervision. We do what we need to do as Avengers. And that really pissed off Walker.
Yeah.
You could tell.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't like that I have these constraints, or maybe he does. But Ray, that wasn't the biggest unveiling part of the episode, was it?
No, I mean, oh goodness, there's so much to get into with this, honestly. But yeah, let's just get into it. They reveal the big thing of the episode is that they realize there's super soldiers out there, right? That the Flag Smashers are taking a variation of the super soldier serum, led by Carly Morgenthau, who of course is the gender bender version of Carl Morgenthau in the comics, who was the original Flag Smasher. The idea that they stole, and it all starts off really with them stealing more with what's called vaccine, but we believe to be more super soldier serum because they want to make more of an army. The power broker then gets involved because that's the power broker somehow is the one who came up with this super soldier serum, probably helped to inadvertently create the Flag Smashers, and also probably working with the government with help with the new Captain America, but it hasn't been revealed yet. So that's a big deal. But the thing is that as Bucky and Sam now are trying to investigate where they're going to, how they can find out where these super soldiers came from, and they will eventually at the end of the episode reveal they have to go see Zemo, which is a huge lead up to episode 3. The big reveal is that Bucky and Sam go to Baltimore, Maryland, and they visit a man named Isaiah. And for those of you who don't know and immediately pick up on this, Isaiah Bradley, this is a huge deal in Marvel Comics history. Isaiah Bradley is the Black Captain America, and the idea was that after World War II, America, and without Captain America, he's frozen in ice at this point, America realizes that they could really still use super soldiers, much the same way a lot of other countries around the world are like, let's make super soldiers, right? This is not a foreign concept at this point. America did dozens and dozens of experimentations on African Americans, because again, this is before the Civil Rights Movement. And all of them but one died, and his name was Isaiah Bradley. And they basically hint at this. By the way, played amazingly by Carl Lumbly, who, again, speaking of Martian Manhunter, was, of course, the voice of Martian Manhunter in the Justice League cartoons 20 years ago. Carl Lumbly comes out, and you see he's still super strong because he takes like a tin and throws it through the wall when Bucky starts to hit his nerves. And he talks about how he fought Bucky as the Winter Soldier in the Korean War. Obviously, Bucky would be frozen here or there over the course of history still, whenever he was needed or not needed by the Red Room. But yeah, and you get Isaiah Bradley, and they touch upon, again, this was a theme for the episode, the racism and the two sets of rules between for whites and for blacks, something that's very much mirroring the conversations happening now in our country. And Isaiah talks about how, and this is also true to the comics, how he was he got the Captain America uniform, he did everything that was asked for him, and then was put in jail for 30 years, and was basically made an experiment, and was tortured, and was punished for doing what he thought what was the right thing, what was asked of him. He was punished for doing what was doing asked of him. It was a very powerful scene there with Bucky. Because Bucky, again, is like Isaiah, there's more like us. Because, again, Bucky's also a super soldier or has a variation of the serum. We see actually this thing where a very funny scene where he jumps out of a plane at 200 feet. Does not stick to superhero landing. But one of the brief moments of comedy in the episode. And, yeah, it's a big deal because it's really, that whole scene in Baltimore encompasses a conversation that's mirroring the country at the current moment. As well, and again, it also shows the pertinence of comic books that they've had over history, and unfortunately still have had. Comic books have always been a great medium to talk about the social issues of the time. And also, for those of you young Avenger fans out there, by the way, yes, that was, and then it's confirmed if you watch the credits, Isaiah's grandson, Eli, is there with him. And for those of you who don't know, we now have basically the Young Avengers roster, because we know Hawkeye's daughter is probably going to become young Hawkeye. We know Cassie Lang, Scott Lang's daughter, is going to become Stature. We have Speed. We have Wiccan. And now we have Eli Bradley, who becomes Patriot. We have the Young Avengers lineup now established in the universe. And that was a big deal as well, just for comic book fans. But again, to talk about the moment, it was huge that they did Isaiah Bradley. It was huge that they even were willing to touch on Black Captain America. And again, this show, in a great way, is not only celebrating the current Marvel Universe, but comic history and making it pertinent in today's world in a beautiful way.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that better. I mean, and Marvel's doing it the right way. They're creating the conversations, they're treating them well, they're treating them balanced, which is something that is not done enough.
Yeah.
And I appreciated it. So, yeah, great episode 2. Looking forward to see where that goes. I have a feeling that Isaiah is going to play a major role in Sam's life in this show. Mm-hmm. Not just that they brought him back, but there's going to be conversations there about him taking the mantle.
Yeah.
And the dangers of an African American being Captain America, which they can't just gloss that over in the show. That would be completely irresponsible. There's a lot to think about there, and I think that's important too. I think that's one of the reasons that Sam maybe didn't take up the mantle right away. There's going to be some cool conversations with that. So great work, Marvel, as always.
Yeah.
Just knocking it out of the park. No Frog Lady episodes yet, and that's what we're going to refer them to as moving forward.
Yes, exactly.
So we'll see where it goes.
Yes, no Frog Lady episodes as of yet.
Yeah,
So
4 episodes left.
They're doing a fan. Yeah, we got 4 episodes left. I think Captain America, even more than WandaVision, I think is knocking it out of the park. And again, I think it also has to do with the fact that each episode's an hour long.
Absolutely.
Almost,
Well, and keep in mind too, you can watch the replays of those with us on streamlounge.io. You can watch them live every Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern or 5 p.m. Pacific, or you can watch the replays of us doing that stream on streamlounge.io at any time that you wish. Should also make a quick programming note. We will be watching Mighty Ducks Game Changers on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We have a national audience here. So check that out with Ray and I. It's going to be fun. We've already watched the first episode. So every Wednesday night you can be with us. Every Friday night you can be with us. Or you can be with us whenever you want on demand on streamlounge.io.
Yes. Actually, Lee, we should mention that. What were your thoughts on Game Changers, Mighty Ducks Game Changers?
Oh, I love it. Here's the thing. I like this show like I like Cobra Kai. Okay, Cobra Kai has done this really great job of being a modern commentary on culture and parenting and the current me attitude of the world. And you can tell right away in Mighty Ducks Game Changers, they're going to do the same thing about parents. Crazy hockey parents. If you guys are able to watch this show, that stuff that goes on in that show is not that far-fetched. I've seen it.
Yeah.
Right. So like some of the parts of nobody would ever do that. Hockey parents will. All right. So definitely check it out. I think it's going to be a great commentary on youth sports and how we completely try to ruin our kids' lives without realizing it through youth sports, and that you should not be playing sports, one sport year round, that there are other things going on. I talk about this a lot on Our Kids Play Hockey, Ray, the other podcast. We've had many shows about topics like this. So I really enjoyed it quite a bit. And it totally captured the Ducks kind of mentality and the feeling, right? Felt like you were watching the Mighty Ducks.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes.
Yeah, there was definitely some PTSD for me and my experience with youth sports growing up,
watching
this show. But it definitely just shows how much it rings true for probably a lot of people.
Yeah, it's like Cobra Kai, taking the silliness of the time it was filmed. It's taking the silliness of the Ducks or the silliness of Karate Kid, applied it to modern day television, and it's keeping itself self-aware. Yeah. Right, the show is self-aware, meaning like, can you believe they used to quack back in the 90s? Like that's a lot of lines from it. Like, so I like that. It's very intelligent. And I really am looking forward. And again, they didn't hold back on bringing Emilio Estevez, who's looking a lot like Charlie Sheen and Martin Sheen, oddly enough. Yeah. So he's in the first episode like right away. They don't hide it. And I just really am looking forward to watching where that goes.
Yeah, no, I think Gordon Bombay was actually a fun bit of heart in this episode, actually, because they did a smart job of making him kind of curmudgeon-y at first, but he quickly warms up to the kids and to the mom and whatnot. And we're not going to we'll go to Stream Lounge this week. We're going to do a full deep dive as the show plays out, but
probably too deep in a good way.
Yes, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. But definitely, again, relate to a lot of the characters already, especially as somebody who has always had a podcaster's body. So that was a fun line. I like that one. So yeah. But speaking of things on Disney Plus, that brings us into our next topic, which is. This is huge. Disney has announced another delay for Black Widow from May to July, but they've also confirmed that, yes, if for Premier Access for an extra $30 fee, much like they did with Mulan, they will allow you to see Black Widow on Disney Plus and not just in the theaters. This is huge. This is going to be day and date Disney Plus and the theaters, because as we know, probably by July, we're still not going to be at at completely normal. We're getting closer every week, thankfully. Knock on wood.
Even if we are, this is what we said. Even if we are at a good place, we're not just going to flock to movie theaters and be around each other yet. It's going to take time to recover from that. Really, it will. I don't think a lot of people are realizing that we're not just going to jump back into society. Now, Nashville's kind of proven me wrong. They opened up. Whatever, Bourbon Street or whatever it's called. Not Bourbon Street, that's New Orleans. They opened up the main strip the other night, and there was hundreds of thousands of people there.
Yeah.
We'll wait to see how that plays out.
There's been hundreds of arrests down in Miami Beach during spring break because all the kids flocked there.
Right.
And actually, not all the kids. Some of them were also adults, and they were carrying guns, and they needed to be arrested.
My point is, we'll in 2 weeks, we'll see if this was a good idea or not. I'm actually not going to come to any judgments on it right now, but... look, here's the deal. Because it's not just Black Widow coming out. Like right now, everything that's coming up until Shang-Chi is going to be coming out on Disney Plus, same day premiere for $30. Let's go through this in waves. The price. That's too much. That's a ripoff. What are you high? It costs $45 to go to the movie theaters with somebody else. If you go by yourself, don't have any snacks. Sure, it's $15 to $20.
Right.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Most of us don't. Most of us are going with a friend. Most of us are buying popcorn. It's a $45 minimum.
It's
minimum. Plus
even
gas and everything.
Even if you get like a small combo, it's $30.
Right.
Like,
so $30 is a totally fair price. Like, you gotta push that aside right away. Especially, and you're watching it in the comfort of your home. I mean, like that makes perfect sense to me. The other important part of this is it will also be in theaters. So if you want to go to the theater to see it, you are able to do that. Now, we've heard some weird pushback from people. Don't do that. Don't make that a trend. It's not a good idea. Okay, whoa. If you've been listening to this show for 2 years, first off, we've been predicting this for a long, long time. Since before Disney Plus launched.
The pandemic just expedited it. It just made it
totally.
quicker.
Right? This is not something that wasn't going to happen. Now, I look at this two ways. One way is that if you want to go see it in the theater and you can go see it in the theater, I don't know why you're upset with people who don't want to do that or don't feel safe doing that. Like, that's everyone's choice. If you don't feel safe, if you don't feel safe, then don't go. Now, there is a fair argument of, well, this will kill the theater industry. I understand that argument.
It's not our job to save it.
If you've listened to this show for the past 2 years, they need to evolve, okay?
Yeah.
So I also think this is somewhat temporary on this plane. And what I mean is, Black Widow, I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to do phenomenally on Disney Plus. It's going to break every record that's ever been put out there. Okay, and it's going to have a theater thing too. I do think that when the pandemic ends, yes, they will not premiere them on Disney Plus the same day it's in the theater. But we have to remember they only have to wait 2 weeks now.
Yeah, the new deal
to put it on Disney Plus. So what I think is what Premier Access is going to move, they'll probably just take away the Premier number. And what's going to happen is it'll be in the theater for 2 weeks. You'll get Premier Access on Disney Plus. And then, 6 months later, you'll have it on video or I guess just for free on Disney Plus at that point.
Right.
But no, I'm not against this. It'd be hypocritical for me to be against this. I love it. It's great. They pushed it off as long as they could, a year and a half.
Yeah.
All right. This is the right move to make. It's the future. If you want a theater experience, start investing in your home setup. Start investing in getting a bigger TV and speakers if you can. All right? And don't tell me you don't have the money, because if you have the money to go see all these movies, you have the money to do that too. All right? Or, and I'm going to be harsh here, just shut up and enjoy the miracle that is you can have a new movie in your home when it comes out, because there's a pandemic going on and they found a way to do that. That's where I'm at with it. So I think it's great news. I'm all about it. I will see movies in the theater again when it's safe. This is a great move by Disney Plus. Really, the last holdouts were Marvel. And I'm glad to see that we're going to be able to move forward with this. Because, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't want to be unsafe. I don't want to feel unsafe. And if you're one of those people that goes, oh, you wusses with the mask. Look, if someone feels unsafe, you shouldn't feel bad that they want to stay in their home and watch the movie. Whether you agree with them or not, that's their choice. Right? You don't want anybody to feel uncomfortable. If you do, you're an hole. All right? If you do, that's what you are. You don't need to encroach on anybody else's want to be safe any more than they encroach on you when they say, hey, put a mask on, which is equally as annoying, I'm sure, although they're right. But that's not the point, right? Just let them have if that's going to make someone feel better, let them feel good. That's the whole point. Anyway, I soapbox there for a minute. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, no, I think it's the right move. We've been calling this for a long time. Other thing is that Shang-Chi was now delayed until September. But what's good news is that Eternals and Spider-Man are holding fast, which means the last 6 months of the year we're getting 4 Marvel movies.
Bang, 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 bang.
Yeah, it's Black Widow. 2 months later, Shang-Chi. 2 months later, Eternals. The month after that, Spider-Man.
It also means that May and June might be a little boring. But we'll have the NHL playoffs, so there you go.
There you go. You'll have plenty of sports and whatnot to watch. We'll get into that later as everything else is starting to heat up there.
Star
in the
Wars in May. You'll have Star Wars.
And you'll have Bad Batch. So
that's true. Yeah. So there you go. But
yeah,
should not be a surprise and should not be a problem.
Yeah. And you have Loki in June. Like this isn't stopping.
That's good. I forgot about that.
It's like, yeah, we'll be fine. We got plenty of stuff.
Also shows you that Black Widow probably has nothing to do with any of the current.
No, it's probably the
properties.
least. It's the least consequential of all the films because it's a prequel. It'll have some fun tie-ins, but it's not going to affect anything.
Yeah,
but the fact,
if it does, it's small. You know, they're gonna plant a seed for something in the future that we're gonna come back to.
But I mean, it's also interesting that they're adamant about keeping Spider-Man and Eternals where they are and making sure Shang-Chi's before those. So they're trying to keep this order intact for a specific reason. So that we will see that soon and more ramifications down the line. Speaking of ramifications, this is huge. Marvel has announced that they will be leaving. They were no longer using Diamond Distributors. This is something that we've talked about here on the show before, that Diamond Distributors is terrible, but they've had a monopoly on the comic distribution market for almost 3 decades. Well, now that has ended. DC is done with them, and now Marvel is following suit. They are joining Penguin Random House, who smartly has basically been upping their distribution system the past couple of years in the attempts of trying to lure one of the major comic publishers to them. And now it seems that's happened, and now Diamond is held holding their diamonds in the flapping in the wind. I guess they are probably done, because now without the big two, most of the major comic distributors and or outlets, the comic stores out there, they're not going to need them for anything. And this is what happens. Yeah, this is what happens. This is capitalism. These guys had a monopoly. Other companies came in and said we can do it better for less. Diamond didn't adapt, and now Diamond is probably going to be dead. And that's the way it is. So bye-bye.
Something better will come up from it. So you had a good run, Diamond.
Yep, like I said, almost 3 decades. I think I want to say like early to mid 90s. They really started to dominate the market, and they didn't adapt. They didn't change with the times, which comic books have needed to do for a while anyway.
Right.
We
talked about that a lot over the last 2 years, also.
Yeah. So that's
the retrospect. Geeks Like Sports 102.
Yeah. And this is a big thing for Penguin Random House, as a book distributor. People, the comic books
who are also hurting. Book distributors are also hurting. So this might, 2 desperate organizations here. We'll see what happens.
It will be interesting to see what happens. Speaking of desperate Marvel stuff, let's move now into the Avengers, the video game specifically.
The game, not the films.
Yes, not the films. These are the video games. One big thing is they did announce that the Black Panther free DLC will be out in the summer, probably June. And they just released, finally, their Hawkeye Future Imperfect DLC, which is the conclusion of a story that was started with the Kate Bishop DLC a couple of months ago. Now that full story has concluded, I can sit here and tell you it sucks.
I haven't played it yet, Ray.
I'm sorry. Well, I won't get into major spoilers, but I thought it sucked. Right. But play it combined. The 2 DLCs are about 5.5, 6 hours, 2.5 to 3 hours for each. I will say this: I think Hawkeye played better than Kate Bishop. Actually, I think Hawkeye played a lot better than Kate Bishop. I'm not gonna lie. But I didn't like the way they portrayed Hawkeye here. And I think that I think this Avengers game is in a lot of trouble. I'm not going to lie. Even with the free DLC, I think it's in a lot of trouble. I think I'm not alone in that a lot of people are. Even with the DLC being free, not really up to wasting 3 hours every 3 months, because these stories are not that engaging. I'm really curious to get your thoughts on it, Lee, after you play both of them. But
I'll make an effort to do that.
Yeah, I'm super, super disappointed. And also, surprise, the PlayStation version, even though everyone we're going to have Spider-Man, even though they still haven't announced what their Spider-Man DLC is coming exclusively, the PlayStation version of Avengers sucks more than the Xbox version for many different reasons. Not only is it buggy as all hell because the hardware is not as powerful as the Xbox Series X, But whereas Microsoft has perfected their cloud saving technology, Sony still can't figure out how to get it right. So if you want to continue your story from the PS4 version of the Avengers to the PS5, and by the way, I did upgrade to the PS5 version. They give you a choice to do graphical upgrade or performance upgrade, and I chose performance, and the game still was buggy and glitchy as hell.
Why would they give you the option?
Yeah, well, because one is like an upscale to 4K, the other one is pure 4K, but if you go pure 4K, I guess there's more screen tearing, because again, the game bit off more than it could chew, especially with the Sony hardware, it seems. Sony, again, the PS5 showing that it's inferior. You have to download the PS4 version of the game to your PS5. You have to get your save data uploaded from your PS4 to the cloud. You have to manually do that from your old PS4. Download it from the PS4 version on your PS5. Then delete the PS4 version of Avengers. Then download the PS5 version of your Avengers, and then you'll have your old save data over to the game. Which Sony can't get. Just get your stuff together, please. When it comes to saves, this is sickening. I'm so sick of it.
To give you all an example of the Xbox version of this is, I downloaded the game and my stuff was there.
Yeah. That's
all I had to do.
Yeah.
It's amazing, man. It just continues to support what I'm saying, which is that Sony is in trouble, and this will be the last PlayStation. We have more on that coming soon.
Yeah, I don't understand why they still can't, after all these generations, can't figure out. Like, you had 7 years to figure out the cloud for save data from the PS4.
Ray, again, we're going to talk about it again in this episode. Microsoft making another massive move that it's making Sony look silly. I don't know how else to say it, but go ahead.
Oh, yeah, and we should also mention, actually, we'll just kind of do a reverse. Sony's also shown that they're anti-game preservation. There's a thing happening now with PS4s that they have an internal clock, and that they are dying left and right. And when those games die, not only do they die, but the games associated with them, you'll lose your save data, and the games will no longer work with them. People are freaking out over this feature, because Sony's big thing at the beginning of the generation was how easy it was to share games on a PS4. How you didn't have to always be online. Well, now when you're not always online with Sony, you lose everything. So that's happening. That is a big deal also, showing that Sony, they say one thing, but they do another. The one good thing to come from Sony this week, we will talk about, and speaking of movies, Ghost of Tsushima, my game of the year last year, which was a phenomenal, amazing game from the guys over at Sucker Punch. If you haven't played that game and you have a PS4, it is a must. Everybody who I've recommended it to and comes back and plays it says the same thing. I had one friend said this might be in their top 10 games of all time now.
Wow.
And
high praise.
Yes, super high praise, and understandably so. Now they're going to try and turn Ghost of Tsushima into a movie. It lends itself to it very, very well. I would love to see a Ghost of Tsushima samurai film. I think it's a great idea. So at least Sony's got one feather in their cap this week, and that is definitely it. Lee, would you watch a Ghost of Tsushima movie?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think this goes on to say too that like some of the Sony exclusives, they've never had a problem with storytelling. Like when you look at God of War, Uncharted, I mean, a lot of these games, they do well. I mean, the stories are fun. You want to continue them, and Uncharted's getting a movie too. So
right.
This is nothing with Tom Holland of all people.
Yeah. So
this isn't crazy. Yes, I would absolutely watch a movie like that, but it shows you again. I'm gonna allude to this that they're gonna be just making games, and I have a feeling when Sony is just making games, the games are gonna be phenomenal. They're just not gonna be on a PlayStation.
Yeah, I mean, and that goes into now our next story, which is Microsoft is killing it again. Yeah. First off, a quick branding change. They mentioned they are now changing the name of Xbox Live, which has been their online service now for almost 20 years. Really kind of the advent of online gaming as we know it today started with Xbox Live. They're changing it now to Xbox Network, which is just because everything now you can get through your Xbox is connected to your PC. You get your television, your streaming services, everything. It makes sense. They just changed the name. It's not Xbox Live, so it's Xbox Network. It's a small branding change, not that big a deal. But the big deal that they are trying, two major acquisitions they are trying for. The first is Discord. For those of you who don't know, Discord is the major gaming chat service that is hugely profitable and has been a major godsend for gamers everywhere in terms of building community, in terms of building in terms of interacting with their friends during games. And Microsoft supposedly has made a $10 billion offer to make Discord exclusive, to bring them onto the Xbox and the Xbox platforms. And again, they have the premier online service, does Xbox. Now they want the premier online gaming chat. This would make this would be a huge boon for them if they were to require this, especially as it was rumored that Discord was talking about going public and becoming a publicly traded company. And Microsoft immediately jumped in and said, well, just hold on a second. Maybe we got a better idea for you. And $10 billion, well, geez, Lee, could you imagine having a $10 billion idea? Holy cow.
Do you understand the power behind that? Of them even flexing this? They're letting the world know what I've been alluding to this the last 20 minutes. Microsoft is trying to own the gaming space. They're not playing around anymore. All right? Not to mention what that would do for Discord.
Yes.
I mean, but look, honestly, let's just play this out. Let's just say they get this deal. Mm-hmm. Nothing's going to stop them. They are going to be the premier gaming service in the world at that point.
Yeah.
Right? And this is what I'm saying. There's a war going on that I don't think people are seeing. It's not a console war. There's a war for control. Yeah. And it's not close right now. So if you're a PlayStation fan, you might want to think about this moving forward. If you're anti-Xbox, I should say. Yeah.
No, I mean, again, this is also part of the reason why you're seeing MLB The Show 21 come to an Xbox this year. You're starting to see those bridges being built for Sony stuff to start moving over to their number one competitor, right. And you're seeing less of that the other way. Whereas, and also this will also be a big deal. So we know that Microsoft has acquired Bethesda, just outright acquired them. They are not trying to outright acquire them because it would be too like Ubisoft. I'm just gonna get right to it. Ubisoft is a major, much bigger third-party developer than Bethesda ever was. But Ubisoft, with studios around the world, Microsoft is trying to make it exclusive, where their games would be exclusively on Game Pass. Which would be a huge deal. Game Pass is already quickly becoming the premier games service for games. If they were to try to pull this off, I mean, you're talking Assassin's Creed, Rainbow Six, Splinter Cell, Watch Dogs. I can't think of them all right now in terms of what Ubisoft has. Prince of Persia. Like, there are major third-party franchises that are exclusive to Ubisoft. The Crew, like, it just... That would, if they could get that, if they would be exclusive to Games Pass, this would be a major blow to Sony, and this would be a huge boon to Microsoft if they could get those games there on part of that service. I think this is something that, and I think it's also be a huge boon knock against Steam. Again, like Lee said, Microsoft is pulling out all the stops. They are exploring every avenue to make themselves the most dominant player in the game space. They won't be the only player, but definitely probably the most dominant one, especially if they were to require, like, the only one people who are bigger than Ubisoft, folks, is EA and Activision. So that says something, and that shows that Microsoft's not playing around.
Yeah, no, this is a war for the power of the gaming industry, right? It's not a war to take over in the sense of no one else is going to be there. It's a war to take over the power of the gaming industry, and Microsoft wants it. Mm-hmm. And they have the capital to do it. I think that's a really important part. Sony does not have the money to do what Microsoft's doing, or else they would be doing it. Yeah. All right? And again, I'll say this again, as I've said many times, there will not be a PlayStation 6.
Yep. I mean, it's I'm not denying it. I don't know. Again, 7 years is a long time. We'll see what happens, but considering
when we get to episode 350, you'll see that I was right.
You probably are, but we will see. Because I mean, again, you got people also forget. Microsoft is profitable in almost everything it does. Sony is not.
Right.
Sony loses money typically on televisions and on.
They can't make X-Men movies.
Yeah.
they can't save their data correctly.
The music. Sony
I haven't
music
bought
is
a CD player in a long time.
Sony music is not doing well. Yeah. It's so there's other avenues. That,
you got to look at the parent companies too. Like
right.
You're talking about the second biggest computer company in the world.
Right.
Or third. I don't know if IBM's ahead of them.
Right.
All right. And you're talking about a company that's heyday was 25 years ago.
Right.
in Sony.
Exactly. That's
Right?
kind of what I'm getting at.
Did
Here,
anybody buy a Walkman recently?
The parent company, Sony's doing fun. Again, Sony Tech, Sony movies, Sony Music, and then Sony Video Games. But video games by far is keeping that company afloat.
I will say this, Ray. This will be my final statement on this topic, but this is something for the audience to think about. I'm not going to say what have you bought less, a computer or a CD player. I'm going to ask you this: how many computers have you bought since your last CD player? Right? Think about that for a second. All right? There's nothing there right now outside their gaming division.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true.
And they'd make more money just making games, most likely. I know you think I'm crazy because of the PlayStation in terms of like people buying the console. They don't make money on the console. They make money on the games.
On the software, yeah.
Come on. Yeah. Right? They make more money making it for Xbox.
It's every game developer.
Yeah.
That's why Nintendo covers its first parties so much, because they know it's
Look,
Mario,
it's like razors,
Zelda.
right? They don't make money on the razor. The thing that holds the razor, you make money on the razor blades.
Right.
That's why they send so many free razor holders out there. It's the same concept.
Exactly.
It looks shiny. It does the job.
Yeah.
But it's not where you make your money.
Yeah.
Anybody have any subscription services out there? Come on, it's like Seinfeld. What are we talking about? It's a video game about nothing. Giddy up.
I could argue that most video games are video games about nothing nowadays, but anyway, not most. Some.
Yes.
Some.
No. Yeah.
Some. But so moving on now. So that does it for our geek section. Another long geek section this week. A lot to talk about. Got some fun.
Good one.
Another good one though. We got some fun sports stuff coming up. We're gonna start things off with this was a fun story. Talking about having you're getting cut off at the knees. Like Microsoft's trying to do the Sony right now.
That was horrible. That was not a good transitional pun, but man, it was a great transitional pun.
Thank you. For those of you who didn't hear this story, this was fantastic. Again, we don't cover a lot of, we cover professional wrestling. We don't cover amateur wrestling, even though amateur wrestling is real and professional wrestling is not.
Wait, what?
But an individual named Spencer Lee out of the University of Iowa won his third straight NCAA title in the 125-pound weight division, and this time he did it with 2 torn ACLs. He admitted that in his post-game interview that he said no excuses. He said all these other things that he said he didn't want to let anybody know because he didn't want his competition to think they had a leg up on him, but but that he
horrible.
Sorry, but that he had 2 torn ACLs. Talk about the perseverance of an athlete to win in a wrestling title like this. Lee, again, we're not big amateur wrestling guys, but this just seemed like a great inspirational story to me.
Look, a few things about this story. One is that he had the will to fight through that. I'm looking for the quote. He had a great quote about hey, look, my job was to win.
Right.
We often, I'm going to get really real here. We often do not know how far we can go until we go, right? There was a great Marine that had spoken and said that whatever you think you can do, you could probably do 20% more than that. And this is just a great example of human endurance, of someone in immense pain looking past that and not allowing it to stop him from winning.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. People go one of 3 ways with this. One is that they don't care, which is fine. Yeah. The other way is that they go negative with like, well, sure, if I had this and I had that, I could do that too, which is BS, right? the way you look at it is this. This is a triumph of human spirit and athleticism. Yeah. And it should be a great example for all of us that no matter what you're facing, don't stop. Yeah. I'm not going to say you can win because that's not always true, right? You lose sometimes when you try. That's what the fear comes from. But you have to try. And he did. Now, this also came at the cost of him probably not going to the Olympics this year.
Yes.
All right?
He did say he will not be at the Olympics this year because of it.
That's another part of this is that he did this knowing that he was going to destroy any chance of him going to the Olympics, potentially ever.
Yeah.
All right? That's if he doesn't continue to wrestle. But I love stories like this. I love that it's on a rundown. I love that we're talking about it. And that, again, if you're listening to this and your brain, I could never do that, that's not what his brain said.
Yep.
All right? Something's got to click that keeps you going. And we all of us, Ray, you, me, we've all had a moment at some point where something snaps in your brain, and doesn't matter how happy you are, how angry you are, you just do what you need to do to get it done.
Yep.
And that's what he did here. And I think it's a great story of human achievement, and I love it. And it's, if you haven't looked it up, Spencer Lee, look it up. The guy won with no ACLs. 2 torn ACLs.
Yeah.
Extremely painful, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, like Lee said, he's already had the surgery. Now they're repairing him.
His quote was, "Excuses are for wusses."
Yeah.
He basically said it's not an excuse. By the way, I would qualify 2 torn ACLs
as an excuse. Yes.
I'm a coach and I'm saying that.
Yes.
It just wasn't for him in this situation.
Right.
Right? I mean, dude's going to be a legend in that sport forever now.
Yeah.
All right? With that said, if you're young, I have to say this. I'm sorry, Ray, I have to say this. If you're young and you have an injury like this, consult a doctor. Know what you're doing before you continue on.
Understand the ramifications. We don't condone doing athletic activity on torn ACLs. That's not the point of this segment. But yeah,
the point is that if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
Almost.
I mean, you know what, Ray? I'm going to take a hard turn here. I got a book for my son about the Wright brothers. Mm-hmm. And just in case you don't know who the Wright brothers are, they invented the first flying object, the first plane, basically, for people to fly.
Yes.
Hey, I don't put it past anybody anymore. All right, and I got him this book, and he's like, "Well, what's the big deal?" And I could have said, like, "Well, they were the first humans to fly," but that's not what I said, Ray. What I said to him was, everyone told them and everyone that a human being will never fly.
Yeah.
And these guys did it. That's what I wanted him to take away from it, was something that was absolutely impossible, not possible. They did it.
Yep.
Right? I love stories like that, right? And by the way, black people will never sit at the front of a bus, right? Okay? These stories are very important to humans, not making it racial here. I'm just saying, like, that's my point.
Yeah.
Just because it says it's never been done doesn't mean it can't be done.
That's fair. It's very fair.
Don't wrestle with 2 torn ACLs.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, that's again. Don't. That's. Yeah.
Unless you're gonna come up with an awesome quote like "excuses are for wusses," then you got to do it.
Yes. Yeah. So a good story there. A good story there. So now moving on to, and honestly, if once he's healed, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up as a professional wrestler. I could see him being like the next Kurt Angle or something. Kid just cut his first promo. I'm
gonna get a nice glass of milk.
No, he just cut his first promo. Excuses are for wusses. First promo, bang, right there.
Right.
So
I love it.
But yeah, so we'll see what happens there. Moving now on to the NFL free agency and to the draft. Some huge stories this week. First off, Lee, actually, we're going to start with your Eagles.
The Birds.
Your Eagles, you got the number 6 overall pick.
We do.
And you traded down to the 12th pick with the Dolphins. But
after all of that hoopla to get the 6th pick,
you traded down. You're behind the Cowboys and Giants now.
I know. It's weird.
In fact, the NFC will have 3 picks in a row. With NFC East, I mean, with the Cowboys, Giants, and Eagles. But what's interesting about this story, and the reason why this, to me, was actually a good move, is that you have your pick this year. You get Miami's next year.
Right.
You also, if Carson Wentz takes 75% of Indianapolis' snaps, you get their first round pick next year.
Which we probably will.
Yes.
To be fair. Right.
You have now, in theory, 3 first round picks next year. And also you have to remember, this year you've got $30 million in dead cap space from the Wentz trade. It feels like, I know you don't want this, but it feels like you guys are going to be like, look, this is going to be a rough year for the Eagles, but we're going to be in position next year to do a lot, to rebuild quickly. If
there was a year to take the risk on that, it's this year, because the NFC East is still not great. And as we saw last year, I mean, teams are improving, don't get me wrong. Okay, we'll talk about that with the Giants in a minute.
Yeah.
But if nobody would have picked the Washington football team to win the division next year, I don't think anybody did.
No.
Right? So if you're going to take a year to try some things, rebuild your identity a bit, this is the year to do it. So I agree with you. It's pretty smart movement by the Eagles to rebuild. And again, look, the Eagles, the Super Bowl that we won was built off a team that was drafted well.
Yes.
Right? And some veteran players, to be fair.
Yeah.
So, don't sleep on the Eagles, right? But obviously for this season, Ray, a lot of that's going to come on to Jalen Hurts and how we play as a core. And like again, I don't want to say they're going to be great, but I wouldn't sleep on it. It wouldn't surprise me if they came out and they were great. Yeah. New quarterback, new coach, honeymoon scenario. If guys overachieve in this division, you never know. You just don't know.
You can win the division with an 8-8 record. So
Really? No, that'll never happen. Wait. I know you're really excited about some of the moves the Giants have been making. I actually haven't seen you this optimistic in a while.
I am actually very optimistic about the Giants.
Cautiously optimistic.
Also, I'm cautiously optimistic. I also want to briefly mention, also, by the way, the reason why the Dolphins moved back up to 6 was because they traded they had the 3 overall, I think, because from another trade, and they sent it to the 49ers. It looks like the 49ers are going to take a quarterback, and the Jimmy Garoppolo era is probably over in San Francisco, which is a shame because it's not because of talent. It's just because the kid's made of glass and he gets injured all the time. Anyway, the Giants made two big free agent signings this week.
The
first
Giants, that's really how you're going to jump into this segment with your optimism, is the Giants.
Oh, that's right. The G-Men!
God,
You asked for it. I wasn't going to do it today. I was going to give you a break.
I thought I'd be able to handle it, but I was wrong.
I knew it. I was going to give you a break, and now the G-Men. Now you're not going to stop. The floodgates are open now, my friend.
Oh my God, he's the most annoying fan, but he's a good fan. I'll say this: when things open up, we're going to have a Geeks Across America tour, and just invite people to come to a game, not with me, but with you. Yes. I'm mostly silent at games. I'm the guy that sits there. I'm just kind of watching. Like, what do you think's gonna happen next? I'm like, I don't know. I don't control the game. Yeah. Ray's gonna be like, this is what's gonna happen. The G-Man, they're gonna do this and that. And I'll just be like, well, we'll see. I'm the boring one. I'm very analytical at the game, unless I'm playing. Then I'm very vocal. Yeah. Anyway, Ray, which team was it again?
The G-Men!
If we do it enough, you'll lose your voice, and I'll have to carry us the rest of the way.
So we all know that my voice has quite the endurance, my friend.
Yeah, I can see you at the end.
Now it's time for Mashup.
Yeah, no, I don't think we're gonna get to that point. But so the G-Men made 2 big signings this week. The first one, to me, the bigger signing, actually, is the signing of Adoree Jackson out of Tennessee. For those of you who don't know, Adoree Jackson was their first-round pick 4 years ago and has played like a first-round pick the last couple of years. He's really developed nicely. But because of we talked about this last week and the week before, the new salary cap, a lot of teams are having to make some unfortunate cuts, including the Giants. We cut our right guard Zeitler, who ended up signing with Baltimore. By the way, Sammy Watkins also signed with Baltimore. That's an interesting thought to get Lamar Jackson some more weapons. But now the Giants, the Titans lost because it would have been a $10 million hit against their cap to pick up his 5th-year option as a rookie. They cut him instead. The Giants signed him to I think it was a 2-year deal. Don't quote me on that, but I think that this is a smart move by the Giants. Now they have a legit number 2 corner opposite Bradbury, who, of course, was a Pro Bowler last year. They are set at safety with Ryan and Peppers and McKinney, who they drafted last year. The linebacker core is solid for the first time in a while, led by Martinez and Fackrell. They've got good defensive line. They re-signed Leonard Williams to 3 years. And again, remember, folks, the Giants had a top 10 defense last year, and I would argue that now with this signing, the defense is a little better. Definitely deeper in the secondary.
Right. They're making the moves they need to make to get better, that's the important thing here, is that, we'll talk about this a little bit in the hockey segment too. Making moves right now in pro sports is really hard. Yeah. And I actually was kind of thinking the other day, I really can't blame any teams, including my own, if they decide not to make big moves during the season right now. Off season's a little different. But look, with COVID protocols and movement, it's a pain in the butt. I would not be surprised if every front office was just telling their team, look, hold straight. If you lose, you lose. We just got to get through this next 2 seasons, and it is what it is, right? But the Giants, again, saw, obviously, that they had some potential on one side of the ball. Yeah. Right? You barely missed the playoffs last year, to be fair. Yeah. All right? And the other thing, too, is that, they're making moves that are going to better their football team. So, potential division contender now. Yeah. Right? Like all the teams are somehow in that division, all right? But the potential to be dangerous in the future is there. In fact, I think the moves the Eagles made and the Giants made, Ray, are going to put us back to head-to-head competition in 3 to 5 years of the front runners for the division as the Cowboys and the Washington football team.
Yes.
Also, whatever their name is going to be.
Really quickly, by the way, do not keep that name. There's been rumors in Washington they're going to keep that name. Do not keep that name.
They're not going to.
Please don't. Sorry, Lee, I cut you off there. I just need
listen. The only way you can keep that name, just since you brought it up, the only way you can keep that name is if you do, Washington FC. like they do in like soccer. I almost said football.
WFC.
All right, so if they did like Washington FC, I'd be all right. I mean, it's a little uncharacteristic and weird. That's fine. Don't make me call them the football team.
Yes,
right.
And don't get a sponsorship become like the Washington Red Bulls.
With that said, listen, the reason why,
although that would
the reason why you have
pretty well actually. Anyway,
the reason why they won't do that is because there's too much money in the branding, and that's why they're going to pick a name. All right, this is one of the big differences from European sports. Why you have like blah 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 FC, blah 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 FC, or SC in here. You know, because they don't market the same way we do here.
Right, all the ads are on the jerseys.
Their
already,
former name was one of the biggest selling primary marks in history.
Yeah.
In terms of Washington, right?
Yeah.
So you can bet your bottom dollar that they're going to find another name that's going to do some damage.
For sure. And speaking of doing damage, let's now look at the other side of the Giants ball, the other for the Giants. The Giants also made a big signing. They got the receiver they wanted. Wasn't the receiver I wanted. I wanted Juju Smith-Schuster. I've been very vocal about that, but the Giants instead signed to a 4-year. By the way, Adoree Jackson, it was a 3-year deal, not a 2-year deal. They signed Kenny Golladay to a 4-year deal, massive contract. I think it's $19 million a year. Golladay is a legit number one. He is a legit number one receiver when healthy. He is injury prone, which is worrisome. But now with a receiving core of Golladay, Sterling Shepard, Slayton, and they also signed John Ross as the number 4 as a speedy deep threat for certain packages. The Giants have a good receiver core now. They also signed Kyle Rudolph away from Minnesota for a 2-year deal, which is a huge deal. People are like, "Oh, well, he's on the decline." No, he got a new quarterback that doesn't like him for some reason, and their loss is our gain. You know, Kirk Cousins is a head case. We all know that, but like, there's also a different offensive scheme there. When he had a different quarterback, Rudolph was the number 1 target, and I think that the Giants' offense, Rudolph reminds me of Jason Witten. Who's our offensive coordinator? The Clapper, Jason Garrett. I hate him, but he needs a Jason Witten type. Evan Engram is not that guy. This move now allows the Giants to trade, hopefully, for more draft capital, because the Giants only have 6 picks this year, which is unusual. Trade Engram for a draft pick. Rudolph is your number 1. You have Toilolo and Caden Smith as your number 2 and 3 tight ends, which is fine. And everybody, by the way, this is a fun stat. Kyle Rudolph has 1 drop in the last 3 years. Evan Engram had 11 last year, including one that cost us the game against the Eagles, which you could probably say also cost us the division at the end of the year. So Evan Engram, I hope gets traded.
Factor.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I know it's extrapolate. I know that's obviously there was a lot more than one play that cost us the season last year. But when you look at all the drops that Engram had, they were all in big moments that could have changed games. And we need somebody with sure hands.
Let's just be everything. I agree with everything you said. I don't want you to think I'm negating anything that you said. It's all true. Yeah. The Giants comes down to one massive question mark.
Is Daniel Jones going to still be a dumpster fire?
Right. Okay. And to be fair, we don't know. I mean, they're giving him tools, like you said. They're giving him the tools to succeed now. Yes. He's got to succeed.
No excuses at this point.
Right. Because if you're not careful here, this is what happens: is that you have this defense now for 3 to 5 years. You have this offense for 3 to 5 years, but you don't have the main piece to that puzzle.
Yeah.
All right. And what you don't want is Daniel Jones to have a par season, then keep him for another year and another year just to be par, and then you waste the team that is potentially a playoff contender.
Yeah.
All right. So it'll be interesting, but that is the big question mark there. Very weird that the Eagles are mowing through quarterbacks that are actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Right.
And the Giants.
You would have been happy with any of those quarterbacks. Any of the Eagles quarterbacks you would have been happy with over the last few years. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So the NFC East, which was a joke last year, as we said, will return to prominence. It was at one time the best division in football. So I think that it won't be as bad as next year.
The least, so
yeah, it's not going to be like last year moving into the season.
No, I think you're going to see a lot better teams coming out of the division this year. And again, if Daniel Jones makes the kind of jump that like a Josh Allen made in Buffalo from year 2 to year 3, great, fantastic. I'll eat crow. I'm more than happy to eat crow on that and say, you know what, they were right. Whatever they saw in him, they were right. I'm more than happy to do that. And the Giants still have some offensive line holes, right? Which obviously they're going to try and fix in the draft, or they better fix in the draft. Like we don't, I don't want to mind the pass rusher Greg Rousseau out of Miami, I believe, but I think the Giants need to focus on this kid Slater. which is an offensive tackle. I think that's who they need to go with. I think they need to fix the offensive line, because then literally Jones will have no excuse whatsoever. And if he doesn't perform this year, he's a bust. He's done. It's over. It's a bust.
I agree. I mean, like, it's looking more and more like they drafted him as high as they did just to give him some confidence. Like, look how high you were drafted. It's not played out. I mean, he was better the second half of last season. I mean, I'll give him that.
He did start to improve, and then he got hurt, and he regressed again.
Right. You won without him.
Yeah, which again shows how good that defense was. That defense with Colt McCoy at quarterback beat the Seahawks.
That's amazing.
Again, the Giants' defense, typically, historically, has always been the Giants' identity. But it would be nice if we could score more than 13 points a game. Again, the Giants had the third worst offense in the league last year, but we're spending a lot of time now on my G-Man.
I was just going to say, you haven't said it in a minute, right?
Yeah, I had to get it one more in. We're going to move on now to hockey. For Lee, we're gonna start things off. Hockey
for
season.
me, this is for everyone.
Well, for everyone, but especially for you.
I'll allow it.
Yeah. So interesting day. Your Flyers came back to beat my Rangers. As some guy named Moron.
Morin, Sam Morin.
I know.
Well, let me talk about this for a minute, because we're starting to see the NHL. The Flyers have lost 3 games over the last few weeks. Scores of 9-0, 7-3, 6-1. And people are starting to ask me what's going on with the Flyers. They're ribbing me, which is fine. But look, here's the deal. And this is what I want to talk about a little bit in the NFL segment. They look exhausted. And here's the deal is when you have scores, it's not an excuse at all, right? They look exhausted. And every time you have multiple games where your goals are getting pulled and you're getting 9 goals against, 7 goals against, your goaltenders are going to get looked at too, including Carter Hart, who's only 22.
Yeah.
They look exhausted. Then the next thing comes up, well, why don't they trade someone? Why don't they fire the coach? Why don't they make moves? Well, this is what I was saying a few minutes ago. You got to wait 2 weeks for any incoming trades to be able to play, or at least a amount of time. Same thing with a coach. You're going to drop your coach off the team in the middle of the season, and who's going to coach the team for 2 games? There's a lot of reasons that if I'm a GM or an owner, I'm just saying you just stay the course this season. Whatever happens, happens. We are typically technically selling out every game, even though it's only 3,000 fans. Yeah. Like, we don't need to be making blockbuster moves now for gigantic salaries and stuff. That's the logic behind the decision-making, behind the team. I just talk about toxic fans a little bit, and the Philadelphia's got plenty of them. It's just this is what they got to do and all this stuff. What if it is as simple, Ray, as they're just exhausted? What if it's that simple and they need a little bit of help on defense, right? We're not in the room. I think this is one of the most important things in all of pro sports. We're not in the room. You see about 10 to 15% of what's actually going on. Yeah. So you got to give these guys some leeway. Now, what cannot be given leeway, Ray, is hot mics.
Oh, yeah. No, that's the big story here in the NHL this year.
That's the big story here on Action News.
Yes. I mean, like Lee said, unfortunately, Rangers lost 2-1 today. I think David Quinn came back, and that's probably why. I hope the Jets.
That'd be hilarious.
I really hope the honestly, I think the Rangers need to fire. I know you did just the whole thing about not firing your coach, but I really think the Rangers need to get rid of David Quinn.
Well, here's the thing. You kind of have a track record of winning under another coach now, so that does change the argument quite a bit.
Right, Chris Knobloch came in and suddenly the offense went from 2 goals a game to 6 goals a game. And by the way, speaking of your goalies, Brian Elliott dominated today. Dominated us, so
which we needed. And now here's the thing. I'll say it. Now you got to kind of watch out for the Flyers. What if they go on a winning streak? This season's like that. I'm not saying they're going to, but if one of our goalies gets confident and we're only letting in 3 goals a night, the Flyers can score. So. Yeah, it's an interesting season with only in the division. The only thing we know is that Buffalo cannot win hockey games.
They are approaching the record for most losses in a row.
They have already broken it.
Did they? I know they did. Yes. I know they set their franchise record. I thought they were still a game or 2 away.
You might be right about the franchise record, but they are on a winless streak from hell. I'll put it.
I think it's 16 in a row. I think the record is 18. I think they are on the cusp of that.
Terrifying.
Actually, they just lost today. They're 17th in a row to the Bruins. So I think they are on the cusp of the record.
I will tell you this, that usually when you see a team losing like that, they're not good. They have enough talent on that team not to be this bad. And it's a shame. Part of it's due to the pandemic and the fact that they're playing some really good teams over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. But there's no excuses in my mind for that team.
No.
None.
No.
You have former players of the year. You've got great guys on that team.
Eichel and Hall and at this
I'm not
point,
saying they should be first place, but they should be winning games.
they should not have 6 wins in 30 games. Yeah, no,
Right.
it should be that is.
I remember it was right. Statistically, as of right now, they are the second worst team of all time in terms of how many points they earn per game.
There you
That's
go.
what it was,
There you
right?
go.
Because it's a little different after the ties were taken.
They've lost 17 in a row now after their loss 3-2 today to the Bruins. And they are 1 loss away from tying the all-time losing streak record,
Right.
which is 18.
Also, the Buffalo Sabres are on that top 10 list of losingest teams all time 3 times. That's not good.
Unbelievable. You know who
No
else
Stanley
is?
Cup to show
You know
for it.
who else? Well, some might people say is a loser. Tim Peel.
Yes.
Tim Peel. Going back to what Lee was setting up earlier. This is a big deal. It's an interesting situation because let's be honest, this has been happening in hockey for forever. The idea of the makeup call, right? Somebody that you call maybe an iffy penalty, and so later
Not
on,
just hockey, right? Not just hockey.
and it's not just hockey, yeah. And and you make it up by calling an iffy call against the other team later on. It's the human element of the game that sometimes people talk about. Well, Tim Peel, it was Red Wings versus Predators, and going into the commercial break, after I guess calling a penalty, which I believe Detroit capitalized on the power play. Or Nashville or something. He's like, I think Nashville capitalized in the power play, and he basically said, I gotta get Nashville later on. I'm paraphrasing here. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but basically saying he was gonna call a penalty on purpose later on if the opportunity presented itself. Again, an iffy call to make up for what he ended up realizing was probably an iffy call to begin with.
His microphone was on when he said this.
Right, exactly. A hot mic. Again, and this is something that is happening a lot in COVID. This isn't nearly as bad as Tom Brenneman using the F word, but this is definitely and I'm not talking about fornication F word when Brenneman said it. If you you all look up that story in your own time. But it's a big deal that this was said. This is one of those unwritten rules of hockey that's now been put out there, and it's. Lee, I want to get your thoughts because it's a weird situation because, like you said,
well, the outcome is that the NHL fired him. Like, he was called to the NHL headquarters and they fired him immediately. So look, a lot of people have been asking my opinion on this, and look, it's definitely one of those things. It's an unwritten rule of the game that this happens more often than not.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he put the NHL in a really tough spot. The thing I keep saying is, what did you want them to do? They have to fire him. They have to fire him.
Yes.
They cannot have someone breaking the integrity of the game.
Yes.
Even if we all know that it happens.
Yes.
If it's out there, you have to fire him. They had no choice. And look, he made his own bed. A lot of people are like, well, this and that. Dude made his own bed. You can't have a hot mic and say I'm going to cheat someone out of a call or cheat someone into a call.
Yep.
You get fired. That's the way it is. To be completely fair, this unwritten rule should not be an unwritten rule. There should not be makeup calls.
Yes. Correct.
All right?
Correct.
That is not part of the game. All right? Whether it's happening to my team or another team. And typically, just to be fair, when they do make a makeup call, it is a penalty. It's just soft, like you said, Ray.
Yeah.
Okay? But what do you want the NFL to do? What did you want them to NHL, excuse me, I'm talking football. What did you want them to do? Any other sport would do the same thing.
Yep.
If you had a ref that was alluding that he was going to call a fake penalty or a foul or a flag on any other team,
Yeah,
you'd
or
want that
balls and
person done
strikes
too.
or whatever.
Yeah, you'd want them fired too. So it is that black and white for me. I don't think there was another option. I think there was swift justice. They took care of this within 48 hours, sent a message to every referee.
Yeah.
Sean Avery came out with a very colorful video really going after Peel. He really didn't like Peel.
Yeah.
Which makes you think if a player was going to get... Now, Sean Avery's not ever shied away from speaking his mind.
Right.
But, I mean, he was angry. He said, you deserve this, right?
Yeah.
So, who knows what goes on behind the scenes?
Well, and that's the thing. It shows that probably a lot of players know that he is somebody who is active.
No one defended him.
Yeah.
No one defended this guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so just Tim Peel made his own bed. 20 years, thanks for your service.
That's it.
You got caught, you're fired. And again, let's just equate this. If I caught someone stealing from my company and reselling, I mean, I'd have to fire them. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just one of those things that's how it plays out. That's simple for me.
Yep. It's unfortunate, but like you said, Lee,
play it
thanks
out
for
the
your service.
opposite, Ray. What if they don't fire him? Play it out. What are they saying? It's okay to do this?
Well, that's the thing,
You
right?
know,
Is
like-
you open up a Pandora's box that you don't want to deal
none of
with,
the rules matter.
and every game he referees from here on out is going to be called into question. It'd be an absolute. It's bad right now. If they kept him around, it'd be bad forever. So. Yes. This is a must. This was a must fix.
What sport would allow cheaters to continue to stick around? What sport would allow that, Ray?
Well, we'll briefly touch on baseball now. Baseball by the next time we broadcast, folks, baseball will have begun. The spring training has come to an end. Opening day is April 1st for many teams. So obviously this will be dropping. We're recording this on the 27th. This will drop on March 29th. So opening day is only a few days away. You know what? I'm not going to have a lot of major predictions. I'm going to basically say what I've been saying. Dodgers are still the team to beat. They retooled and reloaded themselves nicely. They have probably the best pitching staff in baseball from top to bottom. Their lineup, they've lost a couple of bats, but it's still very potent. The Dodgers will probably win the NL West. I think the Padres get the number 1 wild card. I think the Cardinals, making that big trade for Arenado, gets the NL Central. I think the East still goes to the Braves. Do not sleep on Atlanta. No, I know there's the East. The NL East is probably the most stacked division in baseball, top to bottom. But Soroka, Anderson, they have plenty of pitching. They got Charlie Morton from Tampa Bay. I think that they are, and now they have a year of playoff experience under their belt. I think that is going to allow them to probably make a nice. I think they'll get to I think they're going to go to the NLCS. They'll probably lose there again to either the Dodgers or the Padres. Again, depending on how the bracket falls out. And then I think I'm going to say I think the Mets get the second wild card. They lose to the Padres in the first round. Here it is, making my Day 1 opening day predictions because I'm a baseball guy. That's what I'm predicting from the National League. Lee, I know you're a Phillies fan. You have any thoughts on this? Or are you still avoiding baseball at all costs at this moment?
No, Ray, I'll go to a baseball game with you, but I don't plan on supporting that league right now. I'm not kidding. I stick by what I said. Like, if the Phillies get really hot, I might take a peek, but I'm really jaded to the sport right now.
And I don't blame you because I'm still, every time somebody brings up the Houston Astros, it still makes me sick. Sick to my stomach that Rob Manfred's the commissioner still. Sick to my stomach that Jose Altuve, George Springer, Carlos Correa, and Alec Bregman are still allowed to put on their gloves every day.
A team cheated to win the World Series and nothing happened. Yep. I don't understand what they want me to do. I just it's horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah. No, I agree. Speaking of horrible, I'm calling it right now. The Pittsburgh Pirates will be the worst team in baseball. Just saying. In the
which year?
Yes. For a long time, unfortunately. In the American League, I'm going to say, unfortunately, I'm going to say the Athletics win the West. I think that the White Sox are going to win the Central. I think the Yankees will win the East, but again, it's going to be very, very close. Yankees, Toronto, Boston have all retooled, have all gotten better. If the Yankee pitching staff performs the way it should, though, I think the Yankees are the best team on paper in that division. But I do not think we will go far in the playoffs. I think the Blue Jays will be a wild card team. I think the Twins will be the other. I think the Twins beat the Blue Jays. And I'm saying it right now, I actually think the White Sox are going to be the American League representative in the World Series, and then it's either Dodgers or Padres. I think the National League is going to win the World Series title again. I think whoever comes from the National League, whether it's the Dodgers, the Padres, or the Braves, because I think all three of those teams could actually do it if they get hot at the right time. I don't think the Cardinals or the Mets will. I think they'll make the playoffs, and then they're one and done. But and I think the National League is going to win the World Series again this year, and I'm going to say American League, White Sox win the pennant. So that's my preseason predictions.
There you go.
So there we go. Moving on to some good news here in the NBA. This isn't the first sport to have an all-women broadcast team, but it is the first time that the NBA has done it. The Toronto Raptors this week had an all-women broadcast team. Every position, play-by-play, color commentator, on-court, side-court reporter, and yeah, so that was a good thing out of the NBA this week. That was a big deal. Because I do believe the NHL did it a month ago, or at least several weeks ago.
Yeah, I believe it's true.
So, but this is good for the NBA. This is a good story here as we're outside the All-Star break, celebrating Women's History Month, and good on Toronto for doing that. You know.
Yeah, look, we always want to shout out whenever it happens because it doesn't happen often. It needs to happen more. Yep. So we're big proponents of women belong in sports, and this is just another great example.
Yeah. So good stuff there. The Knicks continue to be 500, win a game, lose a game, win a game, lose a game. But in the East, that's good enough for the middle of the pack. Right now, I think they're the 5 seed. Don't quote me on that. I haven't looked at the standings in a couple days, and they play the Bucks. They're about to tip off with the Bucks as we speak. But the Knicks, best defense in the league, they don't suck. Ha ha!
Are you gonna gloss over who's first in the East right now?
Oh, is there 76ers?
It's the Philadelphia 76ers.
Who robbed us, by the way? Speaking of bad refereeing, a phantom foul call on Julius Randle put you guys at the line with 5 seconds left in overtime, so you win 101-100. Oh, yeah, I am very aware of your 76ers, and for the first time in years, I'm excited about the Knicks, and I'm actually angry that we got robbed of a game, because that game mattered. That game mattered a lot, actually. You damn friggin' Philadelphia
Is this a Knicks rant?
This is a Knicks rant.
You can't blame the Sixers. You got to blame the refs.
I am blaming the refs, and Julius Randle did too after the game, got fined $15,000. Screw you, Kiki Vander, whatever the heck your name is, from the NBA who levied that fine.
So we should say the interesting part about the NBA standings right now is that the Toronto Raptors are outside looking in, and not just from the playoffs, but from that play-in round.
Yes.
In 11th place. But yeah, the Sixers, under Doc Rivers, number 1 team in the East, doing really well with a record of 32-13. This might be the time for them to really pull out of the East and get to the NBA Finals. We'll see. Yeah. We'll see. I mean, the real battle is obviously out in the West. But what's funny, Ray, is that we've been talking about the Lakers and the Warriors, and it's the Utah Jazz that are in first place right now.
The Utah Jazz have been quietly dominating the Western Conference.
Right. And we should also say, too, that we don't talk about basketball enough. The Brooklyn Nets are in second place in the East.
Yeah, with that super team they constructed. And Blake
super
Griffin.
team, but also head coach Rick Nash, who we didn't know how he was going to do. He's doing really well.
Well, when you give him all the superstars in the league, I mean,
I don't know. Basketball doesn't rely on a superstar mentality. What are you talking about?
So, so Brooklyn, in the East it is clear. Obviously, Philadelphia, Brooklyn, and the Bucks are the 3 top teams. They should all be there towards the end. But the Knicks only a half game back of Charlotte, who had Rookie of the Year, Ball. I can't think of his first name. I can't remember because I can't remember the ball his names. There's so many of them. There's Lonzo and LaMelo. Yeah, I can't remember them. Like all I remember is Lamar because he's out in everybody's face all the time. He's done such a terrible job promoting his kids, except for his baller brand.
Has he? This is the problem. No one wants to talk about it because did he do the bad job? All of his kids are in the NBA. He did something right.
I thought the one went to Lithuania now.
I mean, you might be right, but yeah, I think you're right.
The point is the youngest one is actually legitimately good. What was it, LaMelo? You said?
They're all making it, and he said that would happen, and everyone was jumping down his throat about it. But did he do a bad job? Because I don't know if he did. Right
until he hurt his wrist, and he's going to miss the rest of the season. The youngest ball there was looking like he could be Rookie of the Year. He still might win it after such a good start, and basically has propelled the Hornets to the 4 seed again until his injury. But that without him, I think that Hornets team is going to start to fall down the standings because again, basketball, one player means more to a team in basketball than in any other sport because it's only 5 guys on the court at any given time. And I would obviously love for the Knicks to host a first round series at the Garden. I would love for the Knicks to move back up into the 4 seed, which is where the Knicks would be if they didn't lose that game to the 76ers in overtime on that phantom call against Julius Randle. Anyway, moving on. That does it for our sports segment of the day. It was a good segment. It was a solid segment. We actually had some. We hit the gamut there, the 4 major sports and the amateur wrestling. But that brings us now to our mashup.
Yes, it does.
Thank goodness. Okay. Our mashup this week is we want to know which sports league do you want to see leave, like all their players leave and go to another league?
Ray, I wrote it really well. In the rundown. It's which sports athletes do you wish would leave their league for another governing body?
There you go. That's what Lee said.
That's the mashup. There you go. That's the mashup.
Well, Lee, you can go again. Explain, folks, again why you felt this was.
I will.
Explain the
All
matchup.
right, so this is coming off Marvel leaving Diamond to go to Penguin. Okay, so the idea was that like they're leaving the league they've been in, if you will, a little stretch here, and going someplace else. So it popped in my head, like, what if the NHLPA, all the players in the NHL said, you know what, NHL, we don't want to deal with you anymore. We're going to go be governed by another league or another entity. And I actually gave this some thought right now. The answer is obvious, but I had to think about it. So, like, I looked at the NHL first. I said, you know what? No, the NHL has been growing year on end since 2005. There's nothing there that they should leave the NHL. Like any league, there's some annoyances, but no, nothing there. The NBA has come under criticism in recent years about that they're too focused on one segment of their audience. But again, not a league that's failed in my eyes in a lot of ways. I don't like the super team mentality, but the NBA is not to blame for that in a lot of ways, right? Like that's the players, I should say the players in the NBA are working together to allow that.
Yeah.
Right? Then I went to football, and it's like, okay, yeah, there's a lot of problems in football. The sport needs some help right now. It would be really easy for me to look at Dwayne Johnson and say, hey, there's an opportunity there. But then again, I was like, you know what? Football is just got so big that it's going to naturally have problems. And then it brings me to the obvious. Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
I would take Major League Baseball's players, and I'd let almost any of the other sports leagues run them just to do it better than it's being done right now. The leadership in the MLB is horrendous.
Yeah.
The managers and the owner, I shouldn't say the managers, the owners of the MLB, similar to the NFL, are a way, way secluded club that is old-fashioned and does not see the future in any way, more so than the NFL. The NFL has innovated plenty compared to the MLB. And I think that the players in Major League Baseball deserve better. I think that cheating would happen less. Cheating is always going to happen, but I think it would happen less. Yeah. And I honestly think the NHL could run baseball better than baseball could. I'll just say the NHL. I think if I had to pick a league to run it, it would be that, or whatever the Japanese baseball league is.
I was
anybody but the MLB.
I was going to say that. I was going to say if baseball should go to Japan and should go over there, or even Korea, one of those leagues.
Right.
And,
you get what I'm saying, though, with the mashup now, right?
Yes.
Like if you had to have a new governing body come and take over Major League Baseball and make it a professional baseball league. Yeah. The PBL.
Right. Yes. There you go.
Yeah, which is the pro bull riding league, so that won't work.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying.
Yes. Well, I mean, and similarly, I was thinking that was one of my suggestions as well. Would be that baseball goes to Japan, or what would be interesting is sticking with hockey. I would love to see the KHL join the NHL.
That'd be interesting. So again, you're removing one from the other, and
right.
I'll be honest with you. If you're going to do that, you'd want the KHL to come into the NHL,
exactly,
not the other way around.
No,
and I can't believe
we would never see Artemi Panarin again. He'd disappear.
Well, I was going to say, I can't believe I'm saying this, but too many people die in the KHL, and I'm not joking. It's funny, but I'm not joking.
Yes,
like a 19-year-old kid just died in the KHL, got hit in the head with a puck.
Yep.
It's never happened like that. Not in the modern era of the NHL, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
Of somebody dying on the ice from getting hit by a puck.
Yeah.
A fan has died.
Hit by another player, and we've had heart attacks on the ice, but...
Right, but not I mean, and it makes you wonder. It makes you just wonder about... I don't want to speculate on that. It's a horrible story. He was 19 years old. He was a captain of his junior team, and he died.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you'd want the KHL players to be under the NHL. They would be treated much better.
Yes, and then we can see Jaromir Jagr again.
We could, right. He's still playing, if you guys can believe that. I should also mention, an entire plane of people died in the KHL one year because they didn't want to spend more money on a better plane. That happened with the locomotive.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not to darken it, but, yeah, definitely don't want to go the other way on that one.
Yeah.
Ray, I got to bring up one to discuss real quick. It's WWE.
Ooh.
It might be. I mean, you'd love it if the AEW guys were running WWE.
Well, I was going to say you're already seeing a lot of guys jumping WWE, the ship from WWE, and heading over there. You're seeing a massive exodus right now. Andrade, who I think was a former U.S. champion now for WWE, has jumped ship. He's not signed with anybody else, but he's a free agent. And AEW is quickly becoming the premier wrestling organization, taking not just people from WWE, but the Mexican leagues and New Japan Pro Wrestling and the NWA, and it's a lot of people are going to AEW, and they are making a huge splash, and they are also leaning into the fact that they're on TNT. they're playing the WCW role, and at least on Wednesday nights, there's been talks about WWE moving NXT off of Wednesdays because they are losing Wednesdays consistently now to AEW. AEW is dominating that night of the week, and also smartly not even having there are 2 other shows on Monday and Tuesday. They're putting on YouTube so that people are like, you can watch it whenever you want. They're here on YouTube. AEW they're playing into the idea of the dark match. They're calling it AEW Dark and AEW Dark Evolution, and those are on Mondays and Tuesdays. You can watch great professional wrestling right there on YouTube whenever you want. It's AEW's doing it right. AEW's doing it right now.
They're evolving. They're not stuck in the old ways.
Yeah,
right? And again, Vince McMahon, he had his time, man, but falling behind, you got to be careful. He is not young anymore.
75, 76, we've talked about this before on the show.
I'm not saying he's not dangerous, but, man, you got to evolve if these guys are going to take over.
Yep. He feels like he's kind of getting stuck in his ways. And look, the Thunderdome scenario, the whole COVID thing has not played. It's played better into AEW's hands than it has Vince's, because Vince is stuck with he has found agreements in Florida now with the Yingling Center in Tampa, but originally AEW was better set up because of the Jacksonville Jaguars and AEW owner Tony Khan. It's like, oh yeah, I have a stadium for you guys to do wrestle in all the time. It's an actual stadium. It's called Daly's Place. It's the convention center connected next to the Jacksonville Jaguars stadium, to the point where they're even like, we're going to do a match in they had an empty stadium match, the Stadium Stampede. It was brilliant, and that kind of freedom that they had and we were able to capitalize on. And they were also allowing fans back into the arenas before WWE, because in Florida, much like here and much like other places now, you have limited capacity. I think it's 10 or 20% now in Florida. But AEW jumped on that immediately. They're like, yeah, you allowing fans back in? Come on in. And so they're getting ticket gates. They're getting sales at the store. Again, it's only 10%, but AEW has really taken advantage. Look at this. We did a wrestling segment, even though we didn't plan one. Taking advantage of all this, they played a bit.
You did one, yeah. Which is fine.
Yeah. So AEW played a bit of
the man.
Yeah. G-Man! So there we go.
G-Man.
Those are, WWE wrestlers, they're going to end up going to AEW anyway, but KHL come to NHL, and MLB go to Japan. I think those are our ideas for the matchup. But we want to know what you think. So,
comment below.
Yes, comment below. We appreciate it. And that's the show for this week. Look at that.
That's 102.
Just came in. Episode 102
There'll never be another 102 like this one.
No, we will never have another episode 102 ever again. So we hope you enjoyed this one. Yeah. We came in just under 2 hours. Look at that. We really appreciate it, though, as always. We appreciate everybody listening. We appreciate everybody who watches. We appreciate everybody sharing, as always. We've got some more stuff coming up with the store soon. Keep an eye out for that. Lee has showed me he's already shared some designs with the group. Let us know what you guys think about those designs. Also, I just want to say, Lee, is that somebody pointed out, I showed to a friend, like, is that me dressed up as a hockey player? Okay, I think Lee's silence says it all. I am happy to be a mascot.
If you combined us.
Okay. That's yeah. So it's my face on your body?
That would be really weird.
That would be really weird.
We're going to have to do some post-production on that one.
Yeah, we should. Yeah,
you shouldn't have said that on the air. Caitlin's going to do something now.
Oh,
Our producer's absolutely going to do something now.
Please
it's
don't.
Absolutely. You remember in the Simpsons game where you used to have to blow up the balloon heads?
Yeah.
That's what it's going to it's going to look like. It's not because you have a big head. No, I'm saying that's how it's going to have to look to be funny. And that's what Caitlin Reese, producer extraordinaire, the third member of our team, is going to do. Calling it right now. Those T-shirts look awesome.
They do look
available
awesome.
soon. They'll be available soon.
My one friend who saw it immediately texted me. He was like, Ray, you're the logo. I'm like, wait a minute. No, I'm not. And I looked at it again, and I'm like,
you should be flattered.
I'm kind of the logo.
You should be flattered that I didn't make it me. I made it you. The person who annoys me most on this planet. I volunteered your face to be part of the Geeks Like Sports Podcast T-shirt logo. It's a great T-shirt. I told you to wait. It was worth the wait.
Yes.
It's a good T-shirt.
Yes. We'll hopefully have those for sale in the next couple of weeks, folks. And yeah, thanks again for your continued support here for Geeks Who Like Sports. But yes, this has been episode 102. For Lee, I'm Ray. Thank you all so much for watching. We appreciate it very, very much. We will see you all next week with 103. But until then, have a good night, everybody. Be safe.